Chapter 100. When Cui Ling heard that the two of them were going to take a boat to the lake to pick water chestnuts, she couldn't help but become happy again. Her eyes lit up as she smiled and said, eldest young master, why don't I go prepare a fishing rod? There are so many prawns in the lake. We can catch one in one go." "Sure. We can cook them for dinner tonight." Shi Fengju smiled. Cui Ling was so happy that she repeatedly agreed. She turned around and happily went to prepare the fishing rod. Not long after, they arrived at the lakeside. Sangwon raised her eyes and looked into the distance. The lake was about 40 to 50 mu wide. The surface of the lake was sparkling and silver. From time to time, pure white water birds skimmed over the surface of the water, chirping. Near the shore, there were scattered broken lotus stems. One could imagine how beautiful it would be when the lotus flowers bloomed in the summer. Shi Fengju smiled and said, "This wasn't a lake originally. It was a depression. In the summer, when there was a heavy rain, the water would accumulate. Often it wouldn't be drained even after 10 days. So I asked people to dig this place into a lake. I drew water from the mountain in front and opened a drain at the northeast corner. That's how it became like today. I didn't expect that after raising crabs, planting lotus flowers and water chestnuts, it would become a beautiful scenery." "That's because eldest young master is thoughtful." Sangwon smiled and said. In her heart she said, "More importantly, you're rich. With your wealth, you can change it however you want." Shi Fengju laughed and said rather intoxicatedly, "Actually, I quite like how it is now. Eldest young master, eldest young mistress, come over quickly." Cui Ling had already rushed forward and jumped onto the boat. She rowed the boat and waved at Shi Fengju and Sangwon. "Last Ling, be careful." Shi Fengju laughed loudly as he pulled Sangwon over. "It's okay, I'm not afraid. Falling into the water is just like taking a bath." Cui Ling giggled. Shi Fengju and Cui Ling carefully helped Sangwon onto the boat and sat down. Cui Ling smiled and said, "Ma'am, please help her. Let's go and harvest the water chestnuts." "Do you know how to do it? Be careful." Sangwon saw the little lass standing unsteadily at the bow of the boat, and her heart couldn't help but thump. "Don't worry, young mistress. I'm fine." Cui Ling swayed and smiled brightly. Shi Fengju sat beside Sangwon and said with a smile, "This girl is used to being wild. You don't have to worry about her. How was it? Are you used to the boat? Are you dizzy?" Sangwon was indeed a little scared. For someone who had never been on a boat before, once they left the familiar shore and saw the vast expanse of white water around them, how could they not be flustered? Her body slightly stiffened, and her hands couldn't help but tightly grip the side of the boat. She reluctantly shook her head and smiled. "It's okay. The wind is calm and the waves are calm. It's okay." Shi Fengju then told Cui Ling to row slower. He smiled at Sangwon and said, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Sangwon subconsciously raised her head and looked into his deep, dark eyes. The wind gently blew across the surface of the lake, bringing with it a unique scent of water and a faint smell of unknown plants. For a moment, Sangwon felt a little intoxicated. She slightly lowered her eyes to avoid his gaze, but she couldn't control her somewhat disorderly heartbeat. Shi Fengju's lips moved. He didn't know how many times he wanted to say something, but he always stopped short of saying it. If he cared too much, he would be afraid. He was afraid that he wouldn't get the response he expected. After all, when she first entered the door, he didn't hide his disgust and dislike for her. Why should he expect her to respond to him now? "Ma, look, there are so many water chestnuts here." The little wooden boat stopped. Cui Ling threw away the oar and smiled as she leaned over to pick the water chestnuts floating on the water. Each one was like a bull's horn with two sharp ends. They were dark brown in color, and were a little bigger than a thumb. They were very small and unique. "Ma'am, for you." Cui Ling picked 7 or 8 water chestnuts, and threw them into a basket for Sangwon. She blinked her sparkling eyes and said with a smile, "Ma'am, have a taste. These are just right, so they'll definitely be sweet and refreshing. Those are a little too old, so they can only be fried. There's still a lot in front. I'll pick a few more. Ma, can bring some back to the manor for Ma and the others to try." "Sure." Sangwon smiled. Sure enough, She picked one from the basket and began peeling it. "You're such a thoughtful girl." Shi Fengju couldn't help but smile as he said. Cui Ling giggled and turned around to row the oar again. Faint traces of water spread over her fingers, and she could smell the water chestnut's unique fragrance. However, the water chestnut's shell was a little hard, so it wasn't easy to peel it off. The boat swayed slightly and Sangwon wasn't paying attention. The sharp water chestnut suddenly poked her fingertip, and a small drop of blood appeared. Sangwon couldn't help but let out a low cry. "What's wrong?" Shi Fengju was originally smiling as he watched from the side. Seeing this, he was shocked. Without thinking, he grabbed her slender white finger and sucked on it. He said tenderly, "Does it hurt? How could you be so careless?" Sangwon's face was already red from embarrassment. She lowered her head and didn't dare to look at him. Shi Fengju didn't notice, and hurriedly took the handkerchief from her waist. He carefully wrapped her finger and nagged, "When we get back, apply some ointment. Be careful, don't let it touch water or anything dirty. It doesn't hurt. It's just a small wound." "It really doesn't hurt," Sangwon said in a small voice, still not daring to raise her head. "You have to be careful even if it's a small wound. What if it gets infected?" Shi Fengju frowned and only relaxed after he finished bandaging it. He deftly peeled a water chestnut, revealing the white and tender flesh. He brought it to her lips and said, "Here, I'll peel it for you. Have a taste." Sangwon's face became even redder. She couldn't help but gently turn her head to glance at Cui Ling. Seeing that Cui Ling was facing the lake in front of her, she sighed in relief. Shi Fengju also came back to his senses at this time. He lowered his eyes and saw that the two's posture was indeed ambiguous. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. However, it was too abrupt for him to withdraw his hand. He suddenly froze and didn't know what to do. Fortunately, Sangwon didn't want to reject his good intentions. She slightly opened her red lips and gently bit the water chestnut that was brought to her lips. A faint fragrance spread in her mouth. She forced a smile and nodded. "It's really fresh and delicious." Shi Fengju was happy again. He didn't withdraw his hand and fed her all the water chestnuts in his hand. "It's good that you like it. I'll peel another one for you." "No, no more." Although the water chestnut left a fragrance in her mouth, she didn't taste anything at all after swallowing it. Her heart was in a mess and her head was a little dizzy. How could she bear another one? "Then let's go back and eat it." Shi Fengju smiled and didn't insist. He just looked at the blushing woman in front of him. She was like a lotus flower that had just bloomed in the water. The more he looked at her, the more he liked her. "Eldest young master, eldest young mistress. This area is full of water chestnuts. No more, no more. Let's just pick them here." Cui Ling stopped and laughed crisply. Shi Fengju and Sangwon looked around. Sure enough, there were water chestnuts scattered in clusters on the surface of the water. It was a delightful sight. "Then go ahead. Be careful," Shi Fengju said with a smile. "Yes," Cui Ling agreed crisply. She put the wooden basin in the boat into the lake, and carefully stepped into it to sit down. The wooden basin swayed gently. Cui Ling used her hands to paddle the cool lake water. When she saw Sangwon looking at her with a curious smile, she enthusiastically called out, "Young mistress, do you want to give it a try? It's so fun." "You go ahead. Young mistress won't go." Shi Fengju hurriedly pulled on Sangwon's sleeve as if she was going to jump in immediately. Cui Ling stuck out her tongue and giggled. She said, "Then young master and young mistress can fish for hemp prawns here. My father and I have been here before. There are a lot of them here." As she spoke, she paddled the wooden basin with her hands. Her fair and tender hands casually plucked a small, black water chestnut and threw it into the wooden basin. "This lass is so quick-witted." Sangwon couldn't help but praise her with a smile. Shi Fengju smiled and said, "If you like her, why don't you call her into the estate to serve you in a year or two?" Sangwon shook her head and said with a smile, "That won't be necessary. Her whole family is living well here. Why should we detain her in the estate?" Shi Fengju smiled and shook his head. Sometimes you are just too kind." "Is it bad to be kind?" Sangwon looked at him and smiled faintly. Shi Fengju was stunned. He then laughed loudly. Good, why is it bad? His smile seemed to contain a kind of doting emotion, which made Sangwon's face heat up. She hurriedly averted her gaze. Shi Fengjiu had already dropped the thin line used to tie the chicken bone into the water. After a while, the thin line shook. When it was pulled up, a finger-sized prawn was revealed. It was tightly clamping the bone with its pair of large pincers. Sangwon couldn't help but cry out in surprise. She clapped her hands and said with a smile, "What a big prawn! This lake really had everything. Do you like it?" Shi Fengjiu smiled. He carefully caught the prawn and threw it into the bamboo basket. He then pulled her over and said, "Come and try it." Sangwon smiled and took the fishing rod from Shi Fengjiu's hands. She then threw it into the lake again. Not long after, they had harvested half a basket of prawns. Their cheerful laughter floated on the surface of the lake like silver bells. When the sun started to set, the three of them abandoned the boat and returned to the manor. They talked and laughed all the way. Sangwon didn't know how long it had been since she was so relaxed and happy, without all the complicated and trivial matters. A leisurely life in the forest was indeed the most pleasant. "Young mistress, you must be tired. Quick, let's go inside and rest." Aunt Chui quickly came out to welcome them. She smiled and helped Sangwon inside. She said with a smile, "Young mistress and young master, please wash your faces and hands first. The big crabs are delicious when steamed. I've already washed them. We'll eat them later. Old slave will serve them in the drawer. Let's go now. Also, let's boil these prawns and make a bowl of Aunt Chui's best seasoning," Shi Fengjiu said with a smile. Okay. Old slave will go now," Aunt Chui said with a smile. "These prawns that have just left the water can be boiled in white water. They'll taste best when dipped in the sauce. Young mistress, let's have a taste of old slave's cooking today. Hee, we'll be staying here for another 3 or 4 days. We'll definitely be able to taste Aunt Chui's cooking," Shi Fengjiu said with a smile. Chapter 101. That's great. The old slave won't disappoint eldest young master and eldest young mistress, Aunt Chui said with a smile. That night, the large crabs were steamed and served on the table. The fat crab meat was delicious and the crab roe was rich. It was accompanied by thin shredded ginger and excellent aged vinegar. A pot of rice wine brewed from glutinous rice and mixed with chrysanthemum was also warmed. Sangwon didn't need to worry about anything, nor did she need to wait on them. Dinner was very enjoyable. She originally thought that she would be able to relax for a few days. Unexpectedly, she woke up late the next day and slowly got up. Just as she finished her breakfast and was about to go out to play, 2 horses galloped over. The horse rider shouted from afar, "Eldest young master, eldest young mistress." Shi Fengjiu slightly raised his eyebrows and said, "The Jean housekeeper actually came personally. What happened?" The Jean housekeeper was the second in command of the Shi family. For him to come personally, it was obvious that the matter wasn't small. Let's call him in first and hear what he has to say. Sangwon couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Eldest young master, eldest young mistress. The Jean housekeeper flew off his horse and threw the reins behind him. He hurriedly rushed forward and bowed while panting. "Eldest young master, eldest young mistress. This servant has come to bring you good news." The Jean housekeeper laughed while panting. "Good news?" Sangwon and Shi Fengjiu were both stunned. Sangwon's heart sank. Good news? What good news had happened in the Fu recently? Unless Gu Fangzi was up to something again when they weren't in the Fu. To her, this was a disaster and not a good news. However, it wasn't necessarily the case for the eldest young master beside her. Sangwon couldn't help but turn her head and glance at Shi Fengjiu. Shi Fengjiu was also looking at her with an inexplicable look in his eyes. In fact, just like Sangwon, Shi Fengjiu's heart was beating like a drum. He also thought about Gu Fangzi. As for what his cousin could do, Shi Fengjiu had no idea. His cousin was no longer the cousin he thought he knew and understood. Enough. Let's take a breather before we speak. Shi Fengjiu flicked his sleeves in annoyance. He frowned and glared at the Jean housekeeper. Housekeeper Jin's face was beaming with joy. He didn't put the expression of the young master of the family in his eyes at all. He raised his hand to wipe his forehead and said with a smile, This servant has forgotten myself. This servant has forgotten myself. Eldest young master, eldest young mistress, quickly return to the manor. Second young master has returned from Hangzhou. Second brother-in-law had won first place, Jiyuan. This is a joyous occasion. What? Sang Wan's eyes lit up. She was stunned and in disbelief. She couldn't help but clench her fists tightly and ask, "Are you talking about my second brother?" Yuan Jiyuan. Second brother is back? That's great. Shi Fengju was also overjoyed. That's right, that's right. He's in our manor right now. Eldest young mistress is also very happy. She ordered the old slave to immediately rush over and invite eldest young master and eldest young mistress back. Uncle Chui, Aunt Chui, and the others were also very happy when they heard this. They hurriedly led everyone to kneel and kowtow to congratulate them. Good, good. Sang Wan's face was full of smiles as she hurriedly ordered them to get up. Just as she was about to reward them, she remembered that she hadn't prepared anything. Shi Fengju smiled at Uncle Chui and said, "Everyone in the manor will be rewarded with a month's worth of money. Put it on the account later." Uncle Chui and the others hurriedly smiled and thanked him. Uncle Chui then said, "The old slave will prepare a carriage for eldest young master and eldest young mistress. He won't dare to delay you and eldest young mistress." Second brother passed the exam. He really passed. That's great, that's great. Sang Wan couldn't stop smiling. Her eyes were shining brightly, and she was speaking incoherently. Father was very knowledgeable, but he couldn't pass the exam even after a lifetime. Eldest brother became a county official at a young age, but he didn't have any achievements after that. In order to avoid father's footsteps, he had no choice but to give up. This time, second brother could finally hold his head high for father and eldest brother. "Wan Yang, come get in the carriage. Let's go back now." Shi Fengju saw that she was so happy that she almost couldn't bear it anymore, so he held her arm and squeezed it. Sang Wan came back to her senses. She put away the excitement and sadness in her heart and smiled at him gratefully. In less than 2 hours, the carriage returned from the secluded mountain to the Shi family. Sure enough, everyone in the household was happy. When they saw that Sang Wan and Shi Fengju had returned, they hurriedly bowed to greet them. Sang Wan didn't know if it was an illusion, but the way they addressed her as eldest young mistress was more respectful and flattering than usual. The two went back to Ning Garden to change. In Ning Garden, Mama Li and Luya had already gone to Wang's place. Wang, second Lord Shi, second old mistress Shi, Rin Jixian, and Shi Yumei were all there. They greeted Sang Yufei together, and the whole house was filled with laughter. The two families had become in-laws. The fact that Sang Yufei was diagnosed with the Jiyuan only brought benefits to the Shi family, so they were naturally happy. Moreover, when first old mistress Shi thought about how Sang Yufei would be able to guide her youngest son who was preparing for the next exam, the smile on her face became even brighter. Although the third son of the Shi family was also an official, this position was a reward given to the Shi family when they stole a batch of important supplies for the imperial court. The Shi family was allowed to donate a 7th-ranked county magistrate. At that time, Wang thought that this position would fall into her husband's hands. After all, her husband was the eldest son of the first wife, who knew that old Master Shi would give the position to the third son of the Shi family. Wang had been depressed about this matter, and had always held a grudge in her heart. Later on, the third son of the Shi family took his family to Sichuan to work as an official, and hadn't returned for many years. Moreover, the emperor was far away, so he wasn't of much help to the Shi family's business. Not only Wang, but the rest of the Shi family also ignored him. Therefore, now that the Jiyuan was in the family, the whole household was overjoyed. At that moment, Sang Wan and Shi Fengju arrived. Sang Yufei hurriedly stood up and greeted his brother-in-law with a smile. The two siblings looked at each other and felt a surge of emotions. Only they could understand the emotions in their hearts. "Aya, why are you all standing? Quickly sit down, quickly sit down." Wang chuckled. The more she looked at Sang Yufei, the more satisfied she was with him. Previously, she thought that he was a gentle and refined gentleman. She didn't expect that even after being diagnosed with the Jiyuan, he would still be so polite and not put on airs. The more she looked at him, the better she felt. Wang couldn't help but think to herself, what a pity, if only there was a daughter waiting to be married off. Such a good person. Who knows which family's daughter would be taken advantage of? At that moment, everyone took their seats and there was a lively atmosphere. In the end, it was Shi Fengju who said that second young master Sang was probably tired, so it would be better if he went down to rest first. Wang, second Lord Shi, and the others hurriedly smiled and agreed. Wang then smiled and said, second young master Sang should stay for a few more days. Tomorrow, I'll send someone to call my Fenghua back to pay respects to Duke Jiyuan. Hee, I'll also be able to benefit from Duke Jiyuan's good fortune. The corner of Sangwon's mouth couldn't help but twitch. The treatment was indeed different. In the past, her mother-in-law wouldn't have called third brother back from the academy for fear of disturbing him. But now she said it so smoothly. However, Sangwon was very happy. Her mother-in-law thought highly of her second brother. Sang Yufei hurriedly smiled and returned the greeting. I dare not decline Auntie's kindness, but I have to rush back home tomorrow morning to tell my brother and sister-in-law that I can't delay. Next time, I'll come back to pay respects to Auntie and my in-laws. If my in-laws don't mind, I'll tell them everything I know. But Auntie's words make me blush with shame. Duke Jiyuan really knows how to talk. His words are so pleasant to the ears. This old woman was muddle-headed. I shouldn't have gone back home to report the good news. Next time, come back to our residence to stay for a few more days, hee. Don't treat me as an outsider. Wang said with a smile. Duke Jiyuan, go and rest first. I have good wine at my place. It's mellow and not intoxicating. You can drink 2 more cups at night, and I guarantee that you won't miss your journey tomorrow. From what I see, Fengju, why don't you personally send Duke Jiyuan back tomorrow? Second Lord Shi said with a smile. Shi Fengju glanced at Sangwon and nodded with a smile. Second uncle is right. Tomorrow Wan Yang and I will send second brother back, and see if there's anything we can help with. Sangwon was overjoyed and looked at Shi Fengju gratefully. Of course, there would be things that needed help. When that time comes, who knows how many relatives and friends from the neighboring villages would come to congratulate them. How would the Sang family be able to handle it with just brother and sister-in-law and Nanny Sue? Yes, go ahead then. Wang Shi smiled and nodded her head repeatedly. Many thanks to Auntie, second uncle, and brother-in-law. Sang Yufei bowed with his hands clasped together. After a while, everyone dispersed. Sang Yufei gave Sangwon a look and Sangwon invited him to Ning Garden 1 with a smile. Shi Fengju knew that the siblings most likely had something to say, so he said that he had to make a trip to the business to make arrangements for the next few days before taking his leave. In Ning Garden 2, the maidservants came forward to kowtow and congratulate them. Sangwon smiled and sent them away. Only then did the siblings sit down and have a good chat. They smiled and sighed, feeling as if they were in a dream. This is great. No one will dare to look down on our family anymore. Even father and big brother won't dare to look down on us anymore. Sangwon's eyes were full of smiles. This is what I'm most happy about. Sang Yufei smiled and looked at his sister. And no one will dare to look down on you in the Shi family anymore. Of course, I don't think anyone will dare to look down on you anymore. Brother-in-law is really good to you. Second brother. Sangwon forced a smile, but her heart was filled with unspeakable bitterness. It was not that she did not feel his good to her and his change in attitude towards her. However, as soon as she thought of Peony Park and the beautiful Gufangzi in Peony Park, she felt a piercing pain in her heart. It was enough to shatter all her beautiful thoughts. Okay. Let's not talk about this anymore. Sang Yufei chuckled and took it as his little lass being shy. The smile on his face suddenly disappeared and he sighed. When we go back tomorrow, big brother and sister-in-law are fine, but second uncle and second aunt. Not only did Sang Yufei frown, even Sangwon could not help but show some worry. She said with a headache, that's right, second uncle and second aunt. I'm afraid, AI. They would definitely put on the airs of an elder, and take all the credit for it. It was as if without them, Sang Yufei would not be where he was today. Big brother had such an honest and considerate personality, so he could not win against second uncle who had a glib tongue. If big brother did not speak, how could a woman like sister-in-law have the right to interrupt? She might even be called unvirtuous. As a junior and the person involved, Sang Yufei could not refute second uncle and second aunt. Otherwise, it would be inevitable that there would be rumors of disrespect to elders and a petty person becomes arrogant after achieving success. One had to know that he had amazed the world with a single brilliant feat this time. Some people were happy for him, but there were also people who were secretly jealous and wanted nothing more than to grab hold of his weakness and spread it everywhere. This is nothing, Sang Yufei sighed. You are my little sister. These words cannot be said in front of outsiders, but there is no need to hide them in front of you. What I am most worried about is that second uncle and second aunt will use my name to cause trouble in the future. If someone with ulterior motives schemed against them and caused some trouble, then it would be troublesome. Sang-won could not help but shiver. Her expression changed as she said, This really cannot be prevented. She believed that second uncle and second aunt would definitely do something like this. Chapter 102. Sang Yufei raised his eyebrows slightly as his eyes lit up. He smiled and said, After the results are released, I will immediately rush back. I believe that the earliest the news will reach town is tomorrow, or even the day after tomorrow. Wanyang, when we return tomorrow, you two can stay in town for the night. I will go back first. I think that I can make some preparations in advance. Sang-won tilted her head and looked at her second brother. She smiled and said, Second brother wants to set a trap for second uncle and second aunt to fall into? Sang Yufei laughed and shook his head. You can't say that. After all, what second uncle and second aunt will do is their business. As long as second brother knows what to do, it's best if you let big brother and sister-in-law know. If you discuss the pros and cons with big brother, he will definitely cooperate with you. Big brother has always treated us siblings the best. Sang-won said softly with a smile. Her heart was suddenly filled with warmth. That's right. Big brother and sister-in-law are the best people in the world. Sang Yufei couldn't help but sigh. Although sister-in-law had a sharp tongue and would sometimes glare at him when she was angry, she had never treated him unfairly. When the weather turned cold, the first thick clothes and shoes she made were all for him. If there was anything good, she would give it to him first. If it weren't for sister-in-law's virtuous support, how could he have been able to study in peace until now? Sang-won also thought of this point, and her eyes couldn't help but moisten. After a moment, she smiled and said, Second brother, you are still the one with the best plans and good luck. Once the results were released, there was a ship rushing back. This is the will of the heavens. It had to be known that the imperial examination was the largest and most important cultural event in the country. It also had an impact on the promotion of local officials. If a few more high scholars passed the imperial examination, it would add a lot of glory to the local officials' achievements. It would show that the county magistrate was good at governing, and would promote the development of local culture. Therefore, before the results were released, the local officials would definitely be waiting for the news, so that they could report the results to the local officials as soon as possible. The official channels were naturally faster than private ones. Sang Yufei's eyes widened in surprise as he looked at his sister. Sang-won, you don't know? When I was waiting for news after the exam, brother-in-law sent someone to look for me. This time, I was able to rush back so quickly because of brother-in-law's arrangements. Otherwise, why would he come to the Sher family with such fanfare? Even if he wanted to meet his sister, he would have done so in a low-key manner. With the Sher family's strength, it was not a problem for them to get a fast boat. What? Sang-won was stunned. She really didn't know anything. Sher Fingju. Thinking of what he had done, Sang-won felt very grateful and apologetic. Looks like you really don't know. Sang Yufei couldn't help but raise the corner of his lips as he joked. I think brother-in-law wants to give you a surprise. Haha. Second brother. Sang-won's face was a little embarrassed as she glared at him coquettishly. All right, I won't joke with you anymore. You go ahead with your work, I'll take my leave. Sang Yufei saw that she was thin-skinned and quickly smiled. He still had to sort out his thoughts and figure out what to do the next day. Then second brother, go back to the guest room to rest. Sang-won then ordered Luya to send him out. After Sang Yufei left, Mama Li, Xingji, and the other maidservants in Ning Garden happily came forward to kowtow to Sangwon to congratulate her. Sangwon smiled and allowed them to rise, then ordered Xingji and Hongyi to prepare money to reward them. Young mistress, no matter who she is, she won't be able to shake your position. Next year, when you have another young master, the position of the Shi family's young mistress will always be yours. Mama Li smiled at Sangwon. I'm really happy for second brother that he can have today. Sangwon couldn't help but smile. That's right, that's right. Even our Shi family is basking in the glory. Mama Li smiled and quickly ordered Xingji and Hongyi. Prepare as many money pouches as possible for the reward. I'm afraid that there will be people from all over the household coming to congratulate young mistress. Sure enough, not long after, the steward's wives, the head maidservants, and the steward's wives all arrived one after another. Even the head maidservants of second old mistress Shi, and the 2 concubines of second old mistress Shi also came. Sangwon received the gifts one by one, received the gifts and rewarded them. She was extremely busy. When it was about time, Shi Lian also smiled and greeted her as sister-in-law, as she stepped through the gates of Ning Garden. Third sister, come in and have a seat. Sangwon welcomed her with a smile. Congratulations, sister-in-law. Shi Lian smiled and went forward to greet her. Thank you, younger sister. Sangwon smiled and personally helped her up. She invited her to sit down and ordered the servants to serve her tea. The 2 of them were closer than the others. Shi Lian sat and chatted with Sangwon for a while before leaving. On this day, everyone in the household was happy except for 2 people, Shi Yumei and Ren Jixian. Shi Yumei felt that her eldest brother was boring. Her husband was also a scholar and his poetry was famous in Mengxian. He was also older than Sang Yufei, but he missed the opportunity to participate in the competition. Seeing Sang Yufei made her feel especially uncomfortable. Furthermore, Sang Yufei was Sangwon's brother. Shi Yumei felt even more irritated. Ren Jixian felt even more bored. His eldest brother was unconvinced and indignant. If he were to take the exam himself, he would definitely not be able to take Ji Yuan's place. I think mother is really muddle-headed. What does the Sang family's success have to do with our Shi family? Is there a need to curry favor with them? Even second uncle, who usually doesn't care about matters, came to join in the fun. Look at the Sang siblings' smug faces. Humph, how frivolous. In Banana Courtyard, Shi Yumei pulled a long face and looked unhappy. Ren Jixian sneered and said mockingly, "Don't talk about mother-in-law and second uncle like that. After all, the Shi family has never produced anyone who passed the exam. It's not easy for a relative to pass the exam. It's understandable that they have this opportunity to be happy. I think they're just muddle-headed. Our family doesn't need to borrow the face of that poor family," Shi Yumei said as she glared at her husband. "Isn't it all because of you? If you didn't fall, this Ji Yuan would have been yours. He wouldn't have had the chance to steal the limelight." These words struck a chord with Ren Jixian's heart. Ren Jixian couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity. He sighed sourly and said, "That's right. Our luck isn't on our side, and our lives are full of setbacks. AI, what a waste of this opportunity." Shi Yumei raised her eyes and said, "Even if it's not this time, there's still a next time. Next time, you have to work harder and get a Ji Yuan for me. Let the Sang family, my mother, and second uncle see who's the real deal." Ren Jixian's expression was slightly sluggish, and he mumbled vaguely. It was fine to complain and vent one's dissatisfaction, but when it came to actual scholarly achievements, Ren Jixian subconsciously felt a little guilty. After all, he knew his own limits the best. "AI, did you hear that? You have to work harder for me," Shi Yumei said as she glared at him. I know, Ren Jixian impatiently said vaguely. How many years could that kid have studied? How much knowledge could he have? I think he's just lucky, like a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. Otherwise, it would mean that the examiner was blind. How can he compare to me? Shi Yumei's eyes lit up, and she hurriedly said, "Do you think he could have bribed them?" She then shook her head. "I don't think so. The Sang family doesn't have that much money." Ren Jixian's heart skipped a beat, and he said, "That's hard to say. The Sang family doesn't have money. Does your Shi family?" The young mistress of the Shi family is his biological sister. That's true. Shi Yumei nodded, and in her heart, she despised Sang Yufei even more. At the same time, she hated his good luck. The two of them were certain of their guess. Although they wouldn't go as far as to report this to the authorities, they both secretly thought to themselves, if he can bribe, why can't we? Since the Shi family doesn't lack money, it's better for us to benefit ourselves than outsiders. During the banquet, other than the unmarried ladies, everyone ate together at Wang's place. The dishes were sumptuous, and the wine added to the atmosphere. Second Lord Shi's two concubines, Concubine Shui and Concubine Fong, also came. They smiled and said that they wanted to see how Ji Yuan looked like, so they couldn't help but praise her. They each toasted Sang Yufei with a cup of wine before leaving. Wang, Second Lord Shi, and the others were very enthusiastic in entertaining Sang Yufei. Even Sang Wan was basking in the limelight. This made Shi Yumei and Ren Jixian even more unhappy, and the forced smiles on their faces almost disappeared. Other than his sister and brother-in-law, the people at the table were all considered elders. Sang Yufei didn't dare to be arrogant and toasted each and every one of them. When it was Ren Jixian's turn, Ren Jixian raised his cup and drank it with Sang Yufei. He patted him on the shoulder and consoled. Young man, you must guard against arrogance and rashness, and continue to work hard. The provincial examination isn't much, and a lot of it depends on luck. The metropolitan examination is the real test of true ability. Many people who obtained good rankings in the provincial examination fell off the list during the metropolitan examination. No matter how Sang Yufei heard it, he felt uncomfortable. However, he did not like to argue with others, especially those who had nothing to do with him. Without changing his expression, he nodded with a smile. Brother-in-law is right. Yufei has learned from you. There are as many erudite and multi-talented people in the country as there are hairs on an ox. Compared to the real great scholars, Yufei is just a frog at the bottom of a well. Shi Fenghua was also brought back by his mother. He was only 3 years younger than Sang Yufei, and the two of them were about the same age. What was rare was that their temperaments were similar. After meeting each other before dinner and chatting, they actually had a feeling of mutual appreciation. When Shi Fenghua heard Ren Jixian's calm and sour words, he couldn't help but feel indignant for Sang Yufei. He smiled and said, Second brother Sang is too modest. You are the Ji Yuan of today's imperial examination. Not only did you get a good ranking, you got first place. Our Jiangnan region has always been full of outstanding people and famous scholars, occupying most of the Confucian world. The first place in Jiangnan is basically the first place in the country. Wouldn't it be easy for you to pass the imperial examination? Who knows, you might even be able to pass the imperial examination. When everyone heard this, they all laughed. Second Lord Shi raised his cup and said jokingly that everyone should toast to the future imperial examination. Everyone laughed and raised their cups in agreement. Sang Yufei was very modest, which made Ren Jixian feel even more bored. Chapter 103. Shi Fenghua praised with a smile. Second brother Sang is also humble and open-minded, which is admirable. Let me give a toast to second brother Sang. Brother Fenghua is too polite. Sang Yufei quickly raised his cup with both hands and smiled. Brother Fenghua is the disciple of the great Confucian scholar Old Mei. His knowledge and character are even better. The conversation just now is extraordinary. If Brother Fenghua does not mind, why don't we find another chance to learn from each other? Sure. I have the same intention. Second brother Sang, you have to teach me more. Shi Fenghua was delighted. In the 3 generations of the Shi family, he was the only one who was good at studying, so the pressure on him could be imagined. Having someone who had gone through the competition and obtained a good ranking to give him some pointers, he would definitely reap some benefits. Wang did not understand half of what they were saying, but her son had asked Sang Yufei to teach him more, and Sang Yufei had agreed. Wang understood this sentence, so she was even more delighted. She invited everyone to eat and warmly invited Sang Yufei to stay at home for a while in a few days. The dining table was bustling with noise and excitement. Ren Jixian saw that everyone was surrounding Sang Yufei. and that Sang Yufei had casually replied to his words, and did not even take the opportunity to ask for guidance. Humph, how disrespectful to a senior. Furthermore, if it was someone else, he might not even be willing to teach. This brat did not know how to appreciate kindness, how despicable. Ren Jixian was infuriated, and could not help but cough lightly. He asked Sang Yufei, "Oh right, what are the questions for this year's provincial examination?" Sang Yufei was puzzled. Why would this person ask about this at the dining table? But since he had asked, it would not be good for him to not answer, so he smiled and said. Ren Jixian unconsciously slapped the table and sighed with regret. So this year's questions are so simple. AI, what a pity, what a pity. If only I could make it in time for the examination. What a pity, what a pity. With such a simple question, wouldn't getting a good ranking be a piece of cake? It was too easy. By the way, how did Brother Sang write his essay? Even though Sang Yufei had good self-restraint, he couldn't help but feel unhappy. How could you speak like that? He forced a smile and was about to explain his essay when Shi Fenghua said with a smile, "Brother-in-law, let's not talk about this during dinner. How about this? Let's find an opportunity to let second Brother Sang write down his essay from memory. Big brother-in-law, you can also write an essay based on this topic, and we can all learn from each other. How about that?" She giggled. "I also want to read big brother-in-law's masterpiece." Shi Fengjiu could not help but cast a deep glance at his third brother. He found it funny in his heart. Big brother-in-law seemed to be really unlikable. Even his third brother, who had such a temperament, spoke with such sarcasm. Unfortunately, Ren Jixian didn't think that Shi Fenghua's words were sarcastic. When he heard this, he was secretly happy. He thought that Shi Fenghua was asking him for advice. He thought that this younger brother of his wife was much more tactful than the Sang family members. So he smiled and nodded. He glanced proudly at Sang Yufei and said, "Third brother's words are exactly what I was thinking. I also want to ask Duke Jiyuan for advice." "Aya, let's talk about this later. Come, let's eat." Second Lord Shi gestured with his chopsticks. Everyone laughed and stopped talking about that topic. Ren Jixian subconsciously straightened his back and looked disdainfully at Second Lord Shi. He thought to himself, "You're such a bore. You only know how to rear birds and fish. What do you know?" After the meal, everyone sat in the parlor and drank tea and talked to digest the food. After a while, Second Lord Shi and his wife bid farewell and left. Wang was also a little tired from the excitement of the day, so everyone bid farewell and left. Ren Jixian didn't know what was wrong with him, but he enthusiastically invited Sang Yufei and Shi Fenghua to his study in Banana Garden. Sang Yufei and Shi Fenghua couldn't refuse, so they followed along. "My study is decorated quite well, right? What do you think? Can it still be considered elegant?" After pushing open the door and entering, Ren Jixian immediately shook his head proudly. He then recited a few lines of poetry that he had painstakingly come up with. He was very pleased with himself. What could Sang Yufei and Shi Fenghua say? They could only smile and say that it was good. However, the two of them thought at the same time, "This isn't your home. And this study isn't the property of your Ren family. I really don't know where you get your pride from." "Hee, it took me a lot of effort to decorate this." Ren Jixian laughed and said to Shi Fenghua, "This is a real study. It's really suitable to read and write in such a study. It's easy to calm your mind and not be impetuous. You should know that the environment has a great impact on the mentality of reading. Third brother, when I'm free, I'll help you redecorate the study." Ren Jixian wasn't asking for Shi Fenghua's opinion. It was clearly a condescending tone, as if he was saying that it was Shi Fenghua's blessing that he was willing to help him redecorate the study. He should be grateful and thank him. No need, no need. Shi Fenghua was so jealous that he had goosebumps all over his body. He was shocked by Ren Jixian's suggestion and hurriedly refused with a smile. "I'm used to it. The way it is now is very good. There's no need to trouble brother-in-law. It's okay. Actually, it's not too troublesome. We're brothers-in-law after all. Third brother, you don't have to be so polite." Ren Jixian didn't hear Shi Fenghua's refusal, and instead became even more enthusiastic. Sang Yufei unconsciously raised his half-clenched fist to cover his mouth and gently coughed. He glanced at Shi Fenghua sympathetically. Shi Fenghua quickly returned a helpless glance. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There's really no need, brother-in-law. Shi Fenghua smiled with difficulty. I'm used to the study. It's better not to change it. If you change it, I won't be used to it. Besides, I eat and live in the academy. I only go home for a few days a year. There's no need to change it. Ah, by the way, brother-in-law, I'm really thirsty. I want to ask for a cup of good tea from brother-in-law. Ren Jixian came back to his senses and hurriedly invited them to sit down with a smile. He then loudly called for Cuebao to come in and pour tea. See, I forgot to invite you to sit down. You're right. It's better not to change it when you're used to it. At that moment, Cuebao came in. She was wearing a peach-red jacket embroidered with roses and a pink flowing dress. A sparkling and translucent jade hung at her waist. Her hair was loosely tied up with 2 strands of hair casually hanging down from her temples. She wore a beaded flower on her temples. She drew her eyebrows and put on some rouge. She had a slim waist and a slim waist. Every step she took brought out 1,000 kinds of charm. She was especially lazy and charming, like a beauty who had just woken up and was waiting to be loved. Come, quickly serve tea to the 2 young masters. Ren Jixian couldn't help but smile when he saw her. His eyeballs were almost glued to her body and his face was full of smiles. Young master, please have some tea. Cuebao delicately answered, yes. She threw a glance at Ren Jixian with her watery eyes. She twisted her waist and put down the tea tray. She personally used her slender hand, which was painted bright red, to hold the tea bowl in front of Shi Fenghua and Sang Yufei. She didn't hand over the tea bowl in her hand, as if she was waiting for them to reach out and take it at the same time. Unexpectedly, Shi Fenghua and Sang Yufei silently exchanged glances. They sat there and didn't even have the intention to move a finger. Both of them saw disgust in each other's eyes. This flirtatious woman was obviously not a good thing. Cuebao's thin, shapely eyebrows slightly raised. She was a little surprised. She thought that everyone was like Ren Jixian, praising her from head to toe. Young master, please. Cuebao was a clever person. Seeing that neither of them reached out to take the tea, she didn't feel embarrassed. She looked around and saw that Shi Fenghua's clothes were obviously better than Sang Yufei's, so she handed the tea to him first. Put it here. Shi Fenghua pointed at the tea table beside him. He didn't even look at her. Cuebao had never been treated like this before. She couldn't help but gently bite her moist red lips. She glanced at Ren Jixian with a wronged expression. Ren Jixian was also a little unhappy. Cuebao was one of his people. If you don't give me face in front of me, isn't it obvious that you're slapping my face? He laughed dryly and said to Cuebao, this is the Shi family's 3rd young master. If he tells you to put it there, then just put it there. You're so blind. Hearing that this handsome man was the Shi family's 3rd young master, Cuebao's eyes couldn't help but light up. That little bit of grievance immediately disappeared. Her powdered face revealed a shy smile. She sweetly said, yes, and gently put down the teacup. The Shi family's 3rd young master, she didn't expect him to be so elegant and handsome. He was truly a dragon among men. Compared to Ren Jixian, it was like comparing a flower to a tree's bark. Cuebao couldn't help but feel regretful. When the woman broker said that she would bring them to the Shi family, the richest family in Qingzhou, they were all overjoyed. When she was chosen, she was secretly delighted for a while, thinking that she would be able to enjoy wealth in the future. With her looks and means, she believed that she wouldn't be under anyone for long. Who knew that although she was taken in by the new master that night, the new master wasn't a real member of the Shi family. He was just using his wife's face to live under the Shi family's roof. This hit Cuebao so hard that she wanted to cry, but no tears came out. The Shi family was the family of the main wife. Even if she was favored by the old master, it was useless. The main wife was still the main wife. Otherwise, if she angered the Shi family, she might be sold off the next day. Now that she saw Shi Fenghua, Cuebao was so depressed that she wanted to vomit blood. She screamed in her heart. Why wasn't this 3rd young master the one who bought her? Cuebao was full of self-pity. When she served Sang Yufei tea, She wasn't as attentive. She lowered her eyes and said, "Young master, please have some tea." Without waiting for Sang Yufei to open his mouth, she took the initiative to place the teacup on the table beside him. This made Sang Yufei secretly relieved. Ren Jixian couldn't help but be secretly happy when he saw this. He thought to himself, "Sui Bao, this lass, is still the most considerate to understand my intentions. Even without me saying anything, she could already feel my master's dislike for this brat from the Sang family. Even when serving tea, he would give him a hard time." Ren Jixian was so happy that his face couldn't help showing it. He smiled at Sui Bao and said, "Sui Bao, don't be rude. This young master Sang is the family's young mistress's brother, the first place in this year's provincial examination, Jiyuan." Chapter 104. Ren Jixian's true meaning was, "Did you see that? Even if you are the younger brother of the Shi family's young mistress, the number one Jiyuan, Art Suibao still disdains you. Clearly, you are nothing special." Who knew that Suibao would be stunned after hearing that? The Shi family's young mistress was the future young mistress of the Shi family. How could her elder brother be wronged in the future? And this Jiyuan. "Suibao has been rude, please forgive her," young master Sang. Without waiting for Ren Jixian's instructions, Suibao bowed towards Sang Yufei. Her appearance was as shy as it could be, and her smile was sweeter than honey. Ren Jixian's expression changed slightly. He was instantly displeased, but he was the one who reprimanded Suibao first. Regardless of whether she was sincere or not, Suibao was not in a position to say anything. Sang Yufei was even more uncomfortable than Ren Jixian. He forced a smile and said, "It's fine." Suibao giggled while covering her mouth. "Jiyuan is too polite." This made Sang Yufei feel so disgusted that he almost vomited. Shi Fenghua snickered to himself. "You were the one who made fun of me just now. Looks like retribution is coming. Come, have some tea, please." Ren Jixian coughed and picked up the teacup. However, Shi Fenghua and Sang Yufei had already lost interest in the tea. The two of them picked up the teacup and touched their lips casually as a gesture of goodwill. Ren Jixian did not notice that. After drinking the tea, he became more energetic. Feeling that the atmosphere was good, he began to talk about literature with Shi Fenghua and Sang Yufei. Shi Fenghua and Sang Yufei could only answer him perfunctorily. Suibao stood silently behind Ren Jixian. Her pair of lively eyes would occasionally throw flirtatious glances at Shi Fenghua and Sang Yufei. The more she looked at them, the more she liked them. Ren Jixian was nothing compared to them. Ren Jixian saw that Shi Fenghua and Sang Yufei were subservient to him. The three of them talked, but the two of them did not say much. Most of the time, they gave vague excuses such as "You're right. You're right. That's right," and so on. Basically, he was talking loudly. He could not help but be secretly delighted. In terms of knowledge and talent, these two brats were still too inexperienced. They were far from being comparable to him. His self-esteem was greatly satisfied, and he was immensely pleased with himself. When he looked at Sang Yufei again, he no longer loathed him as much. On the contrary, he even felt some sympathy for him. He thought to himself that Sang Yufei's appearance was barely acceptable, but who would have thought that he was a bookworm who didn't know what it meant to be a scholar? He did not have the slightest bit of elegance in him. Pitiful, truly pitiful. Ren Jixian's heroic spirit soared. He suddenly became generous and smiled at Sang Yufei. "Brother Sang, you can be considered to have one foot in the bureaucracy. I wonder if there are any clever and considerate people by your side to serve you?" Sang Yufei secretly despised him. He smiled faintly and said, "My family is poor. My brother and sister-in-law have already spent a lot of money to support my education. How could I have such excessive thoughts? Besides, I have hands and feet. I can do everything myself." Shi Fenghua could not help but feel deep veneration for him. Second brother Sang is noble and virtuous. He is filial and virtuous. He is truly admirable. Ren Jixian disagreed. "How can that be? In the past, it was fine. But now you are a dignified Jiyuan. If there is no one by your side to serve you, people will laugh at you. Moreover, it will be a disgrace to the educated." As he spoke, he waved his hand and turned to point at Suibao with a smile. "What do you think of this girl?" Sang Yufei was startled. He forced a smile and said, "All right. Who would criticize their own concubine?" Sang Yufei secretly shook his head. He did not agree with Ren Jixian. Who would have thought that Ren Jixian's next words would give him a big fright? Ren Jixian laughed generously and said, "I also think that this girl is not bad. She is the most intelligent and quick-witted. She knows everything about serving in the study. Since Brother Sang has said so, I will give this girl to Brother Sang. From now on, it will be much more fun to study at night with a beautiful girl. Ha 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 ha." Ren Jixian thought that he was being generous, and could not help but laugh proudly. Sui Bao was immediately overjoyed. She shyly glanced at Sang Yufei. Her pink neck drooped, looking very pitiful and cute. Of course, following the top scorer was much better than working for this strange scholar, who always seemed to have an incongruous relationship with the top scorer. No need, no need. Sang Yufei felt a wave of nausea, just thinking that this girl was Ren Jixian's concubine. How could he accept it? He hurriedly said, "How can I take what you like? Please take it back. I do not dare to accept it." "Ai, this is nothing." Ren Jixian thought that Sang Yufei was too embarrassed to refuse. He became even more generous and smiled. Scholars give each other beautiful concubines. This has been an elegant thing since ancient times. Brother Sang, why should you refuse? Shi Fenghua could not hold it in anymore. He covered his mouth with his fist and laughed. He mischievously looked at Sang Yufei and smiled until his eyebrows were curved. Sang Yufei did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, he could not just let it go like this. In a moment of desperation, he could not care less. He shook his head and refused. A gentleman does not take what others like. Yufei will not comply. Besides, Yufei will be going to the capital to take the imperial exam soon. He has no time for external affairs. I appreciate your kindness. Yufei appreciates it. Please forgive Yufei for not accepting it. Sui Bao was extremely disappointed. She could not help but feel anxious. She looked pitifully at Sang Yufei and said, "Young Master Sang, are you saying this because you disliked Sui Bao?" As she said this, she looked at Ren Jixian with an aggrieved expression. Ren Jixian was also complaining that Sang Yufei was not tactful, and did not know how to appreciate kindness. He had messed up a beautiful matter. Hearing Sui Bao's words, he became even more unhappy. "You dislike my people? Are you complaining that my taste is not good enough? Brother Sang, look at how you have hurt the beauty's heart. We are all cultured people. How can you bear to do this?" Ren Jixian smiled faintly. Sang Yufei pretended not to hear him. He looked at Sui Bao and said, "Miss, what are you saying? Could it be that you do not wish to stay by my brother-in-law's side to serve him? We can all see how good your brother-in-law is to you. What you said is a bit too heart-wrenching." Sui Bao did not. Sui Bao suddenly became anxious. Her expression changed slightly. Ren Jixian could say the same thing, but she could not even think about it. This was the difference between a master and a servant. When Ren Jixian heard Sang Yufei's words, his expression became uncomfortable. As a man, to be disliked by the beauty by his side was one of the most shameful things. "Then miss, please serve my brother-in-law well. Don't let down brother-in-law's good intentions." Sang Yufei's eyes darkened. Sui Bao's heart became cold. She knew that there was no possibility of leaving Ren Jixian's side. Her beautiful eyes immediately looked at Ren Jixian shyly and affectionately. She lowered her eyes slightly and said softly, "Yes, I will serve my master well." Then she looked at Ren Jixian pitifully and said, "Master, I don't want to leave you. I don't want to leave you. I beg you not to give Sui Bao away." Shi Fenghua laughed and said, "Brother-in-law, the girl has already said so. Brother-in-law is a man with tender feelings for the fairer sex. How can he have the heart to refuse? I think we should just forget about this matter." Ren Jixian's unhappiness suddenly dissipated. He was also a little hesitant. Sang Yufei pleaded again. Ren Jixian finally nodded and relented. "All right, since that's the case, then forget about it. When I go back, I'll buy a stunningly beautiful one for Brother Sang. I guarantee that Brother Sang won't regret it when he sees it." When he said this, Sang Yufei just listened and gave a vague smile. He and Shi Fenghua looked at each other. The two got up and said that it wasn't convenient to disturb them in the middle of the night. After leaving Banana Courtyard, the two let out a sigh of relief at the same time. It was as if they had just passed through a dragon's lair or a tiger's den. They looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. As they laughed, Shi Fenghua suddenly felt a little embarrassed. No matter what, Ren Jixian was still his brother-in-law. He coughed and sighed. I don't know what happened to my brother-in-law. He probably read too much and became pedantic. He wasn't like this before. His knowledge is actually quite good. In the past, Shi Fenghua couldn't help but recall the time when his brother-in-law came to marry his sister and returned home 3 days later. At that time, who didn't praise him for being polite and refined? Who didn't say that his sister was lucky to have married a good husband who was obviously a dragon among men? At that time, he was only 8 years old and had just started learning. She was even more impressed with him. Since when did it change? Now he was actually a completely different person from before. Sang Yufei also felt that it was a little unkind of him to make fun of him. He hurriedly smiled and nodded in agreement. His speaking style is actually quite good. If he wasn't a truly learned person, he wouldn't be able to say those words. The two chatted for a while. Because Sang Yufei still had to get up early the next day to hurry on with his journey, Shi Fenghua didn't want to disturb him. He smiled and said goodbye to him, and went back to rest. Sang Wan and Shi Fengju left Wang's place and returned to Ning Garden. Sang Wan was very grateful to Shi Fengju for what he had done for her second brother. She was in a very good mood and unconsciously became closer to him. Shi Fengju was secretly happy. The two of them chatted and laughed all the way back. Sister. Eldest cousin. Who would have thought that just as they reached the entrance of Ning Garden, they would see Gu Fangzi wearing a plain dress and a light blue cloak. She was leading Lan Xiang out from behind the hibiscus flowers at the entrance of Ning Garden. Sang Wan froze. Shi Fengju's brows subconsciously furrowed. Why are you here? Shi Fengju asked. Gu Fangzi smiled slightly. She went forward and curtsied to the two of them. She then raised her eyes and smiled. I heard that sister's second uncle won the provincial exam in Jiyuan. I'm happy for sister and wanted to come and congratulate sister. I didn't want to come too early. Sister didn't come back, so I waited here for a while. Sister, congratulations. You're very considerate. Sangwon smiled faintly. She could only invite her in. Come in and sit and have a cup of tea. You too, it's so cold at night. What if you catch a cold standing in front of the door? Don't be like this next time. If we're not here, you can go back first. It's fine as long as you understand. Gu Fangzi was slightly disappointed. She thought that Sangwon would say, why didn't you go in and wait? That way, she would have a chance to enter Ning Garden when she wasn't here. Who would have thought that she would be told to go back? Chapter 105. Elder sister is right. Fangzi understands, and will follow elder sister's teachings. Gu Fangzi replied with a gentle smile. Her previous domineering attitude was nowhere to be seen. I don't dare to teach you a lesson. I was just giving you a few words of advice. If you fall sick, I will also be at fault. Quickly come in. Sangwon smiled and gestured. Thank you, elder sister, for your concern. Gu Fangzi lowered her eyes and smiled. She took 2 steps forward and quietly separated Luya from Sangwon. Then she personally supported Sangwon's arm and walked in together. Shi Fengju couldn't help but glance at Gu Fangzi from behind. He secretly wondered what she was up to this time. Ever since Gu Fangzi had taken off her clothes and seduced him, Shi Fengju no longer had any feelings for her. Even their familial relationship was almost non-existent. After Sangwon sat down, Gu Fangzi formally bowed and congratulated her. She couldn't help but praise the Sang family and second uncle Sang. Sangwon could only reward her with an embroidered pouch and smile perfunctorily at her flowery and auspicious words. In her heart, she was even more puzzled than Shi Fengju. Did she eat the wrong medicine? How could the two of them know that Gu Fangzi had purposely done this for Wang, Shi Yumei, and Shi Fengju to see? When she heard the servant say that Sang Yufei had been poisoned by Jiyuan, she couldn't believe it. When she came back to her senses, she was so jealous that her heart ached. Sangwon, Her biological brother had actually been poisoned by Ji Yuan. In this lifetime, she would never be able to compete with her in terms of status. If she were to become a grand scholar next year, she would never be able to make a name for herself. After asking around, Gu Fengzi listened to Lan Xiang talk about the liveliness in the residence today. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth and didn't even eat properly. After she calmed down from her jealousy and anger, she decorated herself and ordered Lan Xiang to keep an eye out. When she found out that Shi Fengju and Sang Wan had left the main courtyard, she hurriedly took Lan Xiang and waited at the entrance of Ning Garden. Didn't eldest cousin always ask her to remember her identity? Very good, she would perform well for him. This was the only thing she could do now, and it was also her only bargaining chip. Sister, you're so lucky. Only someone as outstanding as her sister could enjoy such a great fortune. Furthermore, our Shi family has also gained a lot of prestige. Gu Fengzi smiled humbly. Little sister, you're exaggerating. We're all relatives. What do you mean by gaining a lot of prestige? Sang Wan smiled. It's getting late. Little sister, you should go back and rest early. Then little sister will leave first. Gu Fengzi stood up gently. In the future, little sister will come and chat with elder sister when I'm free. Gu Fengzi said as she went to bid farewell to Shi Fengju. After Shi Fengju entered the room, he said that he was a little dizzy after drinking 2 cups of wine, so he went to lie down in the warm room. Eldest young master is resting in the warm room. Old slave thinks that Miss Gu doesn't need to go in to save the trouble. This old servant will report to the eldest young master later. Nanny Li said after hearing this. Gu Fengzi changed her attitude and nodded with a smile. Okay. She then turned to Mama Li and smiled. Then I'll have to trouble Mama. Elder sister, little sister will take her leave. Elder sister should also rest early. Little sister, have a safe trip. Sang Wan smiled. Mama Li was also shocked by Sang Wan for a while before regaining her senses. However, she didn't feel that there was anything wrong. She couldn't help but whisper to Sang Wan. Eldest young mistress, look. In the future, Miss Gu won't be able to be tough in front of you. Eldest young mistress, you can rest easy now. At least she's tactful. Mama. See if the hangover soup is ready. Pour a bowl for eldest young master to drink. It's time to rest. We still have to wake up early tomorrow. Sang Wan smiled, but she was even more puzzled. She didn't know what Gu Fengzi was up to. Sang Wan didn't believe that Gu Fengzi was someone who knew how to tactfully retreat. Look at how foolish the old slave is. Mama Li couldn't help but laugh. The old slave should personally go to the small kitchen to take a look. Oh right, pour a bowl for third young master and second young master as well. Mama, do as you see fit. Sang Wan nodded with a smile. After letting Shi Fengju drink the soup, the two of them washed up and went to rest. Early the next morning, Shi Fengju, Sang Wan, and Sang Yufei bid farewell to Wang and the others. They brought along Chang Huan and a dozen other servants, as well as 7 to 8 maids, and headed to Willowtown. The carriage traveled briskly without rest, and arrived at Willowtown around noon. Sang Wan had already explained everything to Shi Fengju the night before. When they arrived in town, Chang Huan booked the best room in the best inn, and a few ordinary rooms for them to rest in. After Shi Fengju and the others had their lunch at the restaurant, Sang Yufei hired a carriage and cupped his hands to bid farewell. He was still wearing a headscarf on his head and a green robe that was neither new nor old. When they heard that their second brother had returned from Hangzhou, Sang Hong and Fong happily came out to greet him. The brothers caught up with each other after they parted ways. Rest well at home for a few days. The news should be back in a few days. Don't worry, it's good that you're back. Even if you don't pass, there's always a next time. You're only 19 this year, still young. Just treat it as practicing and accumulating experience. Sang Hong said with a smile. Yes. It's good that you're back. The most important thing is that you're safe. You'll pass one day. Even if you don't, it's fine if you come back to farm. Fong said with a smile. Hey, how can you say that? Sang Hong was a little protective. In fact, Fong Shi's words were similar to what he had in mind. However, when Fong Shi said it out loud, he felt a little unhappy. Fong didn't back down. She glared back at him and said bluntly, What's wrong with saying that? There's nothing wrong with saying that. Isn't life just like that? You have to eat and wear clothes to get through life. You can't go down the wrong path. Third brother, don't you think so? Sang Yufei hadn't heard his eldest brother and sister-in-law quarrel for a long time. Now that he heard it, he felt warm and affectionate. He couldn't help but look at his eldest brother and nod with a smile. Sister-in-law is right, you're right. That's right. Fong clicked her tongue and said. Third brother is the only one who understands. Sang Yufei couldn't help but smile. Thinking about it, he felt that he should quickly tell his eldest brother and sister-in-law the good news. They were people who really cared about him. It wouldn't be right to hide it from them. When the words reached his mouth, he felt that they were 1,000 pounds heavy. He cleared his throat and coughed twice. He stood up and bowed deeply to his eldest brother and sister-in-law. Eldest brother, sister-in-law. This time, this little brother has become a high scholar in the provincial examination. I didn't disgrace eldest brother and sister-in-law's teachings. Thank you, eldest brother and sister-in-law, for taking care of me all these years. Sang Yufei's eyes turned sour as he knelt down. Sang Hong and his wife were stunned as they looked at each other. Seeing Sang Yufei's serious actions, it was obvious that he wasn't faking it. The two's hearts couldn't help but beat wildly. Sang Hong stared and muttered, Passed? Passed the provincial examination? Really passed? Yes, eldest brother. Really passed. Sang Yufei laughed. His eyebrows were raised and his eyes were bright. Good, this is really good. Today, I must burn 3 joss sticks for old master and mother-in-law to make them happy. Fong smiled until her eyes were squinted. She quickly pushed Sang Hong and said, Quickly help second brother up. Why are you so silly? Quickly get up, quickly get up. You can't. Sang Hong seemed to have woken up from a dream. He hurriedly got up and helped Sang Yufei up. After passing the provincial examination, there was no need for him to kneel before an official. After passing the provincial examination, he was considered a person with status in the local area. The county magistrate had to greet him with respect. Is this news accurate? Where did you hear it from? No, I don't mean anything else. I just feel that. Sang Hong was so happy that he was a little incoherent. Because he cared too much, he didn't dare to believe it. I saw it with my own eyes, of course it's true. I only came back after the results were released. As Sang Yufei spoke, he recounted how Shi Fengjiu had already sent people to take care of him. He also told them about how he stayed at the Shi household for a night. Sang Hong and Fong were deeply moved when they heard this. They were even more grateful and full of praise for Shi Fengjiu. Our Sang family has finally made a name for ourselves. Good, this is great. Second brother, I knew that you wouldn't disappoint us. Sang Hong's eyes were also a little dazed. The smile on his face couldn't be stopped, and he kept smiling foolishly. His expression was even happier than if he had passed the examination himself. Eldest brother. This is all thanks to eldest brother and eldest sister-in-law. Sang Yufei smiled gratefully. Eldest brother, did you know? I won the Jiyuan prize. What? Sang Hong and Fong widened their eyes in shock. Their mouths opened slightly as if they were about to spit out their beating hearts. Their breathing suddenly became hurried. Jiyuan? First place. You really won the Jiyuan prize? Sang Hong stared at Sang Yufei and asked nervously. He couldn't help but press his hand to his chest. Heavens, this is too exciting, really too exciting. If this news was true, he wouldn't be able to take it. However, if his younger brother said that this was just a joke, he wouldn't be able to take it either. It's true. How could I joke about such a big thing? Sang Yufei smiled and glanced at his brother. He couldn't help but step forward and gently shake his brother's arm. Eldest brother, calm down. Actually, it's just that. Nonsense. Sang Hong grinned and laughed. However, because of his words, he finally regained some clarity. He patted his brother's arm and smiled. Fei, you're really good. Our father's spirit in heaven can finally rest in peace. That's right. You can be considered to have fiercely fought for our family. I'll see who dares to laugh at us in the future. Fong proudly heaved a sigh of relief. In a scholarly family, her father had only been a scholar his entire life. Her brother had already become a scholar more than 10 years ago, and had no further progress. With Sang Yufei participating in this provincial examination, who knows how many people were waiting to watch the show? This is great, this is great. Aya, this is bad. Feng suddenly slapped her thigh and exclaimed. What are you saying, you? Sang Hong stared at Feng with dissatisfaction. Feng unceremoniously stared back at him and said to Sang Yufei, second uncle, second aunt. Oh, right. Sang Hong said as he was about to get up. He happily smiled and said, I'll go tell second uncle and second aunt and let them be happy, hee. Stop right there. Eldest brother, wait. Feng and Sang Yufei held on to Sang Hong at the same time. Chapter 106. They looked at each other and saw helplessness and wry smiles in each other's eyes. What's wrong? Sang Hong looked at them strangely and smiled. Don't worry, this is great news. Uncle and aunt will be happy to hear it. They won't do anything. They won't make things difficult or ridicule them. Sit down. Feng Shi forcefully pushed him down and glared at him. Use your brain and think. Brother has been poisoned by Ji Yuan. He's a big shot in Willowtown now. Who knows how many people will try to curry favor with him. With uncle and aunt's temper, they'll do anything under the guise of brother. You're trying to get brother killed. Sang Hong's face changed and he broke out in a cold sweat. This might be. No way. Do you really think so? Humph, they even dared to set their sights on Wan Yang, let alone brother. Feng sneered. Sang Hong's heart sank and his palms turned cold. He knew his wife was right. With uncle and aunt's personalities, it was entirely possible. Moreover, they were the elders and he was the younger generation. He couldn't even say a word, otherwise it would be disobedience and unfilial. If father and mother were still around, they would be able to suppress second uncle and second aunt. Similarly, second uncle and second aunt could not go against the word filial piety. However, father and mother were no longer around. You're right, sister. I rushed back before the people at the yamen to announce the good news because of this. Sang Yufei sighed. It's not that I dislike uncle and aunt, it's just that I can't respect them for what they've done. Feng glanced at Sang Yufei, thinking that Duke Ji Yuan had a way with words. The things that the couple had done made people unable to respect them. They just wanted to slap their faces a few times. But in at most 1 or 2 days, the people who will deliver the good news will come. This matter can't be hidden from them. Sang Hong couldn't help but frown. For the sake of his brother's future and reputation, he could disregard everything. Even his uncle and aunt had to step aside. I have an idea that we can try. At the very least, it can shut their mouths. Sang Yufei said as he explained his idea to his brother and sister-in-law in detail. Sang Hong still looked a little hesitant, but Feng covered her mouth and laughed. She said happily, I think it's a good idea. Let's do it. At that time, they won't be able to say a single word. As he spoke, he sighed. They are so shameless. I'm afraid that when the time comes, they will still shamelessly suck up to us. We can only take one step at a time. Sang Yufei sighed. An unreliable elder was enough to send him, who had just taken a step forward, off the cliff. After the discussion was settled, Sang Yufei changed into an old indigo gown that had been washed white, and went to knock on Rio Kuwabira's door. Li Li peeked through the crack of the door and deliberately asked loudly, Who is it? Second aunt, it's me. Sang Yufei raised his voice and smiled as he answered. After a long while, the door was lazily opened with a creak. Li crossed her legs and leaned against the door frame with one hand on her waist and the other on the door frame. She glanced at Sang Yufei and said with a smile that was not a smile, Oh, Fei is back. How is it? Hangzhou is quite prosperous and fun, right? It's all right. Sang Yufei smiled honestly and said, Second aunt, we don't have any noodles. Sister-in-law asked me to come and borrow some flour. How could Li be willing to lend things to others? When she heard this, her face fell and she sneered. Where would we have flour? We don't have any. She sneered and said, I say, isn't your sister-in-law too cold and heartless? You see, this time you didn't pass the exam, and she couldn't even bear to cook noodles for you. She even asked a scholar like you to collect flour. Io, how insulting. Your sister-in-law is too narrow-minded. Isn't this your first time taking the provincial examination? You're still young. There will be more opportunities in the future. Second aunt, Big Brother's house really doesn't have any flour. Sister-in-law said that you went to town to buy flour yesterday. Are you going to lend it or not? She didn't say that she wouldn't return it to you. Sang Yufei became impatient and said without any courtesy, "What kind of attitude is this? Who are you talking to? What? So what if I don't lend it to you? You want to rob me?" Lee suddenly raised her voice and said sharply. Ryo Kuwabara couldn't help but get angry when he heard this. Thus he also ran out and scolded Sang Yufei. "Useless thing, you dare to talk to your second aunt like that. So you came to our house to vent your anger when you didn't pass the exam. With your appearance, why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? How can you pass the exam? You should rest your heart and obediently go back to farming. Don't waste your money and don't even have food to eat in the future." It was lunchtime, and the men and women of each household had just returned home to eat lunch and rest. They hadn't gone out to work yet. The villagers didn't have much entertainment, but the nature of gossip was the same everywhere. Ryo Kuwabara and his wife's loud scolding had already attracted the attention of the men and women of the neighborhood. Soon, more than 10 people had gathered. Everyone saw Sang Yufei standing there with an awkward and helpless expression, as if he was being pointed at by Ryo Kuwabara. They couldn't help but discuss and secretly sympathize with Sang Yufei. A few older and more mature people couldn't help but go forward to persuade Ryo Kuwabara. "In any case, he's your nephew. Brother Sang, if you have something to say, we can talk it out. Why do you have to be so angry? This useless thing. I hate Iron for not living up to expectations, really. You're just like your damn father, not listening to anyone's advice. Do you have that kind of life?" Ryo Kuwabara angrily scolded and said to the crowd. "Who knows how much money he wasted on this trip to Hangzhou? Sooner or later, he'll squander away all his money. That's right. Otherwise, you won't even be able to eat porridge in the future." Li fiercely rolled her eyes at Sang Yufei. Everyone knew that Sang Yufei had gone to Hangzhou to participate in the provincial examination. Seeing him come back alone, dressed in shabby clothes, and with the glorious history of the Sang family, without asking, everyone subconsciously believed that he didn't pass the exam. Although to a certain extent, they felt that Ryo Kuwabara was right. After all, how could a country bumpkin have so much spare money to waste? It wasn't like there weren't any old scholars who didn't have a coffin or good clothes after taking the exam for their whole life. However, Ryo Kuwabara and his wife's words really didn't sound like what an elder would say. Sang Yufei was also angry and said sternly, "I only came to borrow some flour from second uncle and second aunt. If you can't bear to lend it to me, then forget it. Why do you have to say so much? I, Sang Yufei, didn't spend a single cent on the exam. It's fine if you talk about me, but why do you have to talk about my father? Second uncle, since you're so disrespectful to my father, don't blame me for not recognizing you as my second uncle. Do you think we care so much?" Lee spat her saliva and scolded. "You calling me second uncle is worth so much money. If you don't want to recognize him, then don't." Everyone heard it. "You're the one who said you don't want to recognize him. If you have any problems in the future, don't come looking for us." You still dare to talk back." Ryo Kuwabara was also angry. "You were the one who disrespected my father first." Sang Yufei didn't budge an inch. "Second brother, what's going on?" Fong and Sang Hong also came. Fong said, "I only asked you to borrow some flour. How did it end up like this?" "Oh, you're using my things as a favor," Lee said sarcastically. "If you're so generous, why don't you buy it yourself? Now you want to get rid of this burden and use my family's food to raise him? Don't even think about it." "Second aunt." Sang Hong's face sank and said, "Asian only said to borrow. She didn't say to take advantage of second aunt. I'm willing to raise my biological brother for a lifetime." "Second aunt, don't say such ugly words." "Okay. Then you can raise him for a lifetime. Don't borrow from us. We don't have it." Lee snorted. "Then I won't lend it." Fong sneered. "Elder, you're actually so cold-blooded and heartless. Your mouth is so loud. All these years, When have you helped him with a needle or a thread? Don't act like an elder and lecture him. Since you're looking down on him so much, from today onwards, we'll cut all ties. Even if Faye can't pass the exams, we're willing to raise him. Even if we have to beg for food, we won't come to your house. If you have the ability, when he passes the exams in the future and becomes rich, I'll submit to you if you don't bask in his glory. When everyone heard this, they remembered what Ryo Kuwabara and his wife had done to the Sang family's first branch all these years. They couldn't help but discuss it. Although it wasn't appropriate to speak too directly, the way they looked at Ryo Kuwabara and his wife changed. You shrew you. Ryo Kuwabara pointed at Fong in anger. He had hoped that Sang Hong would teach his wife a lesson, but Sang Hong's face was ashen and he stood there motionless. It was obvious that he agreed with his wife's words. Even he was rebelling. Ryo Kuwabara was so angry that he almost jumped up. He sneered, fine. If he can pass the exams, I, Ryo Kuwabara, will write the 3 words Ryo Kuwabara upside down. Don't even mention basking in his glory. Even if he begs me, I won't. Someone like him wants to pass the exams. Only if there's smoke rising from his ancestors' graves. Li snorted in disdain. Fong raised her eyebrows and said mockingly, You're all saying it so easily now, but there's no proof. I'm afraid that when the time comes, you'll put on the airs of an elder. Hee. Who in this village doesn't know that second uncle and second aunt are the most meticulous people in the village? How can they not take advantage of the situation? Everyone couldn't help but cover their mouths and laugh. They thought of how Ryo Kuwabara and his wife were usually so shameless that even a toad would have to piss 3 times. There was almost no family that hadn't been taken advantage of by this pair of thick-skinned people. Hearing these words, they felt great joy in their hearts. Everyone began to talk in whispers about the two's glorious deeds. When had Ryo Kuwabara ever received such treatment? His old face immediately turned red, and he said angrily, Preposterous. I, second brother Sang, have always kept my word. When have I ever gone back on my words? Fine. Let's go to Rijong's house and write a contract. You 2 brothers better behave yourselves from now on. I don't care if you freeze or starve to death. Don't even think about taking my things. Second uncle, are you really willing to do that? Fong sneered. Who knows, maybe second brother will pass this time's provincial examination. The good news hasn't come yet, so who dares to say that he won't pass? I think second uncle should still think about it. Don't lose face when the time comes. What good news? Dream on. Li sneered. What? You're scared when you hear about a contract? You still want to take advantage of our family in the future. Let me tell you, it's too late to regret now. Let's go, we'll go to Rijong's house now. We're all a family, why make such a fuss? Someone sighed and advised. That's right, that's right. Everyone agreed. Humph. Fong sneered disdainfully. How could Ryo Kuwabara and Li endure this? They were so enraged that they wanted to jump up and go to Rijong's house immediately. Chapter 107. Alright, since second uncle and second aunt insist, then let's do as you wish. Second uncle and second aunt, don't forget what you said today. I, Sang Yufei, swear that I will never enter your house again. Sang Yufei bowed and said, All the villagers have seen it. It's not that Yufei is unfilial, but second uncle and second aunt have gone too far. What are you saying? Ryo Kuwabara and Li couldn't wait any longer and dragged Sang Yufei towards Rijong's house. Ryo Kuwabara suddenly stopped and glanced coldly at Sang Hong and said, In your family, only Wan Yang is good. Only that child Wan Yang is worth doting on. You guys humph. Hearing this, Sang Hong and Sang Yufei's hearts turned cold. That's right. If Wan Yang married into a good family, of course second uncle wouldn't disown her. But even if it was her biological brother, he wouldn't even put him in his eyes. As a person, he could curry favor with the powerful and shameless to this extent. All right. Sang Hong smiled bitterly and said, Since that's the case, we might as well make a clean break between our 2 houses. From now on, we won't have the slightest connection. Second uncle and second aunt, please don't lecture us in the future. Even Sang Hong could say such words. It really made everyone sigh. That's for the best. I'm too lazy to worry about you guys anymore. Good intentions don't pay off. Ryo Kuwabara coldly snorted and said, From now on, I will only recognize Wanyang as my niece. Only that child Wanyang deserves to be doted on. The villagers originally wanted to persuade them, but after hearing these words, they couldn't help but feel contempt. That child Wanyang deserves to be doted on? In the past, when Wanyang was at home, they didn't feel so sorry for her, but they did make irresponsible remarks about her marriage. Li Li was the one who said the most. One day, she will be abandoned by the Shi family. She should take a look at herself first before thinking of marrying into a family like the Shi family. Everyone couldn't help but think that the Sang family's second son and his wife really weren't human. Now that the two families had broken off their relationship, they could live their own lives in the future. That way, they wouldn't have to listen to those gossips anymore. Who knows, they might even be able to prosper sooner rather than later. Thus, the two Sang families went to look for Rijong. In order to show their determination, Ryo Kuwabara and Li Kong walked in front with their heads held high, while the Sanghong brothers and Feng slowly followed behind. Who wouldn't love to see such a big scene between the two branches of the family? Before they even reached Rijong's house, almost everyone in the village who knew about the news had followed behind them. Those who didn't know the reason behind it couldn't help but ask those who came first. Thus, those who came first took on the responsibility of answering the questions of those who came later. Both parties sighed again. What are you dawdling about for? Hurry up. Ryo Kuwabara stopped in his tracks and turned around to shout coldly. I say, second uncle. Are you really not going to reconsider? Fong smiled. We're a family after all. Second uncle. Don't blame us for returning the favor if you do something wrong. Don't give me that, you wicked woman. Li Kong snorted. Haven't we been burdened by you all these years? What more do you want? Let me tell you. Now that we're here, you can't regret it even if you want to. Sister-in-law, don't say any more, Sang Yufei said lightly. We'll just listen to second uncle and second aunt on this matter. I, Sang Yufei, will no longer have anything to do with the second branch. That's for the best. Ryo Kuwabara sneered. You're just like your father, stubborn and opinionated. Humph, do you think it's so easy to become a high scholar? If you can become one, I'll become a saint too. After saying that, he turned around and left, urging Sang Yufei on. Some busybodies had already rushed over and knocked on the door of Rijong's house, explaining the situation to Rijong. Isn't this nonsense? The second son of the Sang family isn't young anymore. How could he do something so ridiculous? Rijong couldn't help but frown and sigh. In his opinion, even though Ryo Kuwabara wasn't reliable, he was still the only elder in the Sang family. He felt that having an elder in the family was a good thing no matter what. When something big happened, there would be someone who could make the decision and make the decision. If there were any disputes with others, having an elder to mediate was much better than having to do it himself. He was doing this out of the kindness of his heart, for the sake of the Sanghong brothers. While Rijong was complaining with a frown, Ryo Kuwabara and the others had already arrived. Ryo Kuwabara didn't wait for anyone to say anything and rushed to tell Rijong the reason for his visit. He accused the Sang Yufei brothers of being unfilial, saying that in order to avoid being angered to death by them in the future, it would be better to sever ties with them today. In the future, they would go their separate ways and not get in each other's way. Rijong naturally knew the character of the Sang brothers, and he also knew Ryo Kuwabara's ability to add fuel to the fire. He sighed inwardly and couldn't help but advise Ryo Kuwabara. How about this? Let the two brothers apologize to you, and this matter will be considered over. In any case, they are still a family, and they don't have an elder in their family who can make decisions. You are their uncle, so just take pity on them. Why do you have to be so calculative with your juniors? Rijong's words were both to advise Ryo Kuwabara and to remind Sanghong and his brother. As he spoke, he gave Sanghong a look, hinting that he should take the initiative to apologize. If he did, Sang Yufei would naturally do as he was told. Then he and the other villagers would help to smooth things over, and this matter would be considered over. If it was in the past, Sang Hong wouldn't have waited for Rijong to arrive, and would have already apologized. But for the sake of his younger brother's future, and the fact that his second uncle's actions were truly chilling, he felt that it was better to forget about it. If he didn't have an elder like that, then so be it. Thus, he pretended that he didn't see Rijong's look. Ryo Kuwabara saw that Rijong's words were clearly to emphasize his important position, and his heart became even more satisfied. The corners of his eyes were raised high as he looked at Sang Hong and his brother. His mind changed and he proudly snorted. If they want me to forgive them, then they must show their sincerity. Kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times, and swear that they will never contradict me again. And you, Fei, obediently go back to farming, and don't think about other things. Give me another 200 taels of silver, and I won't bicker with them. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Kowtowing, swearing, and even asking for 200 taels of silver. His appetite was really not small. Rijong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't expect Ryo Kuwabara to be so unreliable. They are your nephews, after all. I think it's enough if you just apologize. Brother, in the future, your 2 daughters will also have a maternal brother to support them. Rijong advised again. He also reminded him that he only had daughters and no sons. In the future, he would have to rely on his nephews to send him off. After all, his daughter and son-in-law were from another family. How could they be more reliable than his own nephews? When Ryo Kuwabara heard this, he couldn't help but become vigilant. He secretly said, "Not good. It's better to cut off this relationship. Otherwise, won't these 2 brothers covet my property in the future?" When he thought of the future when his 2 daughters got married, there would be no one in the family. After he passed away, his property, house, and fields would all belong to his 2 nephews. Ryo Kuwabara suddenly felt his heart ache, and secretly made a decision. Thank you, Rijong, for your good intentions, but I know my family's matters well, so there's no need for Rijong to worry. I ask Rijong to make the decision and sign the document to cut off the relationship. Ryo Kuwabara cupped his hands and said. Fong couldn't help but say, whether or not second brother studies or not, we are the ones providing for him. We didn't say anything, so why are second uncle worried? Oh, you can't be afraid that in the future, second brother will become a jiren, zhuangyuan, and become a high official, and our first branch will be successful, and you will be jealous. What nonsense are you talking about, you wicked woman? Ryo Kuwabara jumped up in anger when his little secret was pointed out. He glared at Fong and scolded her. He took the opportunity to angrily say to Rijong, "Did you see? How unfilial they are. How dare they talk to an elder like me? Today, you have to make the decision for me." Rijong frowned and scolded Fong. "Fong, you don't have the right to speak here. Hurry up and apologize. Sang Hong, discipline your wife." Yes, this little woman is ignorant and spoke nonsense. Rijong, please don't blame me. Without waiting for her husband to speak, Fong quickly admitted defeat. She smiled and bowed to Ryo Kuwabara. Second uncle. This niece-in-law is ignorant and offended you. She made you angry. It's this niece-in-law's fault. Please don't take it to heart. Please forgive me. It was clearly an apology, but Ryo Kuwabara's anger didn't subside after hearing it. Instead, it rose even higher. He couldn't help but snort. Ignorant and stupid woman. Taking it to heart with you is lowering my status. Fine, today I, Ryo Kuwabara, will say it right here. Even if Sang Yufei becomes the prime minister in the future, I, Ryo Kuwabara, will not try to curry favor with him. Humph, open your eyes wide and see clearly. Fong smiled and didn't say anything. She silently retreated behind Sang Hong. Rijong, quickly make a decision on this matter. Even if they kowtow and apologize to me and give me money, I still won't forgive them. I still want to live a few more years without being angered to death. Ryo Kuwabara said angrily. Rijong saw that Sang Hong and his brother didn't have the slightest intention of redeeming themselves. Since they've already made up their minds, why should I meddle in their business? Then he thought about how Ryo Kuwabara and his wife usually treated their own nephew. He couldn't help but think, perhaps I'm too pedantic. If I really cut off all ties with them, the Sang brothers might be able to live happily ever after. Fine. Since you trust me, Then I'll make a decision for you. Follow me into the house. I'll write the document. Rijong finally nodded. Thank you very much. Ryo-Kuwabara glared at Sang-hong and his brother. He rushed to follow behind Rijong. After the document was written, Rijong read it out loud. Then he asked both sides if they would consider it again. Ryo-Kuwabara didn't hesitate to put down his thumbprint. There's nothing to consider. Thank you, Rijong. Sang-hong and Sang-Yufei also put down their thumbprints. There were 2 copies, one for each side. Ryo-Kuwabara shook the thin paper between his fingers and said to Sang-hong and his brother, "Look carefully. From today onwards, I'm no longer your second uncle. Don't think about our family's things, Sang-hong and Sang-Yufei looked at each other. They didn't know what he was talking about. Think about their family's things? When did they think about their family's things? Second uncle, don't worry. Sang-Yufei was just about to speak when he was interrupted by Ryo-Kuwabara. He said coldly, "Don't call me second uncle. I, Ryo-Kuwabara, don't have such a talented nephew like you. Call me second uncle Sang." Chapter 108. If there's nothing else, you can all go back. Rijong's face darkened as he said indifferently. He was also speechless. There was actually such a cold-blooded and heartless person in this world. Okay, I'll remember. Sang-Yufei smiled faintly, but he didn't even dare to call him second uncle Sang anymore. He bid farewell to Sang-hong, Fong, and Rijong before turning to leave. Ryo-Kuwabara also carefully put away the document and went back with Li. Although this matter was resolved, Sang-hong and Sang-Yufei still felt a little depressed in their hearts. There was an indescribable sense of loss and discomfort. In the past, no matter what happened, the 2 brothers would always take the initiative to apologize in order to keep the peace, so this matter never got out of hand. Who knew that this time, the 2 brothers were unwilling to be submissive, and things immediately got out of hand? Just think about it, if they didn't endure and give in, wouldn't second uncle have already cut ties with them? Unlike Sang-hong and Sang-Yufei, Fong's mood was exceptionally good. After leaving Rijong's house, she had a smile on her face and her footsteps were lighter than usual. Let's go back quickly. We haven't even had lunch yet. Mother Su must have already prepared lunch. Fong smiled. Sang-hong sighed and looked at Sang-Yufei and said, "Second uncle told us not to covet his things. What are we coveting?" "I don't know either." Sang-Yufei shook his head and reminded his big brother, "It's not second uncle, it's second uncle Sang." "Big brother, remember, next time don't call him by the wrong name and make him look bad." Fong heard this and laughed. The corner of her mouth hooked up as she said disdainfully, "You guys don't know? I know. He doesn't have a son, only 2 daughters. Isn't it because he's afraid that you 2 will covet his family's property? He doesn't even think about it. It's good that he doesn't covet other people's things. Who would dare to covet his?" It really seemed like it could be this. Sang-hong and Sang-Yufei looked at each other, speechless. All right. It's already over. Don't think about it anymore. Hurry up and go home. The house needs to be cleaned and tidied up. Who knows when the good news will come? Fong said with a smile. Sister-in-law is right. Sang-Yufei also nodded with a smile. He couldn't help but hold back his breath. He wanted to see what kind of faces second Uncle Sang and second Aunt Sang would have when the officials came to announce the good news. Leaving aside Sang-hong and his wife, Ryo-Kuwabara and his wife also went home. At night, Fong killed 2 large roosters and a duck. She also fried a large plate of eggs and prepared a sumptuous meal. Sang-hong and his brother invited Rijong and a few other respected elders in the village for dinner. They said that they didn't have any elders in the family in the future. If there were any disputes in the future, they would have to ask the elders to uphold justice. Everyone thought about how few members of the Sang family were in the Sang family. They only had a few scattered clansmen in other counties that couldn't be further away. They had long stopped interacting with them. Their only second uncle was so heartless. They couldn't help but sympathize with them. Coupled with the sumptuous meal and respectful attitude, they all agreed generously. When Ryo-Kuwabara entered the house, the first thing he did was to carefully hide the document. He was about to talk about the second thing when he saw Lee's gloomy expression. He glared at her and waved his hand in front of her. Hey, what are you doing? Come back to your senses. I say, master, I feel like we've suffered a great loss. Lee sighed and said, what good will it do us to sever our ties with them? It would be better if. Even if Fong hated her, mocked her, and rolled her eyes behind her back, she still had to respect her in front of her. Moreover, she could occasionally go to their house to get some firewood or vegetables. Now that they had severed their ties, wouldn't that mean she couldn't go to their house to take advantage of them in the future? Although she felt very good just now, Mrs. Lee felt that something was not right after the feeling was over. No matter what, they were still the younger generation. She had to respect herself. More importantly, they had never received any benefits from her, had they? What do you know? Ryo Kuwabara scolded. Don't be blinded by those trivial things. You're happy to take advantage of them? They're waiting to take advantage of you. Otherwise, why would they let you do whatever you want? A woman's view. They dare. When Lee heard the words take advantage of them, it seemed like there was really such a thing. She suddenly said angrily, I haven't died yet. It's not their turn. What if you're dead? Ryo Kuwabara asked. You. Lee was furious. What if you and I are both dead? Who will our property, house and land belong to? Ryo Kuwabara said coldly, we only have 2 daughters. We don't have a son. Lee was stunned, and then her face changed. Yes, after 100 years. Without a son, after 100 years, the property would belong to the nephew. This was a matter of course. Otherwise, the widow wouldn't have been kicked out of the house, and the property wouldn't have been divided among her husband's brothers. Sang Hong and Ryo Kuwabara were their nephews, so it was reasonable for them to inherit the property. When she thought of this, Lee was even more anxious than Ryo Kuwabara. No, this can't be. How can the property that we worked so hard to earn be taken advantage of by outsiders? If she wanted to blame someone, she could only blame her stomach for not living up to her expectations. She only had 1 daughter and couldn't give birth to a son. Lee was sad, and she couldn't help but secretly tear up. Master, I think we should just leave Yen at home to find a husband. Lee's brain worked quickly. She clapped her hands and said happily, I think that's a good idea. In the future, the child will also have the surname Sang. This way, we will have descendants. In your dreams, Ryo Kuwabara said disdainfully. Find a husband? How can we rely on that? When we were alive, we could control that brat. Do you think we can control him when he's dead? With Er's personality, do you think she can control him? When the time comes, he can do whatever he wants. This property will still belong to someone else, not to us. Then what should we do? Are we really going to let those 2 brothers take advantage of us? Lee didn't know what to do. Ryo Kuwabara's words were reasonable. After they died, how could they control their son-in-law? Which man would be willing to marry into the family and be someone else's son? I already have an idea. Ryo Kuwabara glanced at Lee and said calmly, so I've decided to take in a concubine. Take in a concubine? What? Lee's eyes widened as she stood up. You say that again. What are you shouting for? Ryo Kuwabara frowned and scolded. You almost scared me. Wouldn't everything be solved if you take in a concubine and have a son? You heartless person. I've been with you for so many years and you want to take in a concubine? You heartless person. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to live anymore. Lee sat down on the chair and slapped her thighs as she cried. Calm down. Ryo Kuwabara didn't care about her crying at all. He looked at her coldly and said, It's just taking in a concubine. Why are you throwing a tantrum? Won't a concubine respect you after marrying into the family? Won't a son call you mother after she gives birth? You still have the face to throw a tantrum. If you have the ability, then give birth to a son for me to see. Ryo Kuwabara hadn't thought about this before. The more he thought about it, the more he regretted it. The anger in his heart grew as he continued. If you were a virtuous person, you would have taken the initiative to take in a concubine for me to carry on the family line. Now that I've taken the initiative, you still dare to throw a tantrum. Just based on the fact that you have no descendants, I can even divorce you. You. Li was so angry that her whole body trembled. Her anger was completely extinguished, and she didn't dare to throw a tantrum again. She knew Ryo Kuwabara's temper. Moreover, she didn't have a son. If she still stopped him from taking in a concubine, and he wanted to divorce her, even her family couldn't do anything. At most, they could only throw a tantrum. There were 3 ways to be unfilial, and having no descendants was the worst. Master has already said so. What else can I say? Li sniffed and said, I'll ask around for Master and find a good girl to bring back. You don't need to worry about this. Ryo Kuwabara saw that she was settled with a few words, and his heart felt comfortable. He said, I've decided to go to town tomorrow. You stay at home and clean up the west room. Change the bed curtains and blankets to a new one. Li's face turned white and her heart turned cold. He was going to the town's dentist shop to buy a woman. When Madame Li thought about how there would be a charming little girl at home tomorrow, she felt uncomfortable all over. She was so jealous that her stomach churned. Master, Li forced a smile and said, I think we should be more careful with this matter. It's best to slowly ask around and find someone who knows the root of the problem. That dentist shop isn't clean. Who knows if there's anything wrong with them? Ryo Kuwabara snorted at her. You don't need to worry about this. Do you think I, second Master Sang, am a fool? Humph, that dentist shop can't run away. If they dare to lie to me, I won't let them off. Besides, if I'm not satisfied, I can always buy another one. What's the big deal? Don't forget to tidy up the room for me. Do it yourself and don't tell Aro. What does that girl know? Let me tell you, if you dare to play any tricks on me, you'll have to give up the bedroom tomorrow night. Li was speechless. She was so angry that she almost suffered internal injuries. She gritted her teeth and said, Master, don't worry, I'll tidy it up myself. I guarantee that Master and the new concubine will be satisfied. Just you wait, Li. Just wait and see how this old lady will deal with her once she enters the family. Buying her has its advantages. At least she doesn't have the backing of her maiden family. It's easy to control and manipulate. Humph, when she gives birth to a son, I'll sell her off and the son will belong to me. With that thought, Li relaxed and did not feel as uncomfortable as before. Instead, she took the initiative to curry favor with Ryo Kuwabara. Is Master thirsty? I'll go brew a pot of tea for Master. She got up and went to the kitchen, shouting at the top of her lungs, Aro, Aro! Where did you go this time, you damned girl? Hurry up and start a fire to boil some water. The next morning, Sangwon and Shifengju woke up in the inn. After washing up, they ordered the servants to prepare breakfast in the room. Chonghuan has already asked around. The good news only arrived in town today, so we'll probably go to the Sang family tomorrow. Let's stay here for one more night, and hurry over tomorrow morning, Shifengju said with a smile. Sangwon naturally wouldn't say no. She nodded with a smile and said, In. Breakfast was soon served. Although it wasn't as exquisite as the Shur family's, it still had everything one could think of. There was fresh shrimp and shredded chicken porridge, black rice porridge, fragrant rice porridge, dumplings, xilongbao, shumai almond tea, cinnamon tea, creamy pine nut puffs, and pumpkin egg yolk puffs. There were also a few side dishes to go with the porridge. These were all brought from the Shur family's residence. Young mistress, please try this. This servant specially went to Li Ji's place to buy it. I don't know if it's still the same taste as before. Luya walked forward with a smile, and placed a bowl of tender tofu pudding in front of Sangwon. You're quite considerate. Sangwon smiled and said to Shifengju, I used to like to eat this. It must have been hard on this girl to go and buy it. As she spoke, she stirred the tofu pudding with a spoon. The steaming hot and light aroma immediately assaulted her senses. She scooped up a spoonful and tasted it. She nodded at Luya and said with a smile, It's still the same taste as before. Not bad. Then young mistress, please try more. Luya immediately became happy and smiled until her eyes turned into crescents. Chapter 109. Isn't it good that she has you in her heart? Shifengju smiled and glanced sourly at Luya. You lass, you only have eyes for your young mistress. Why didn't you buy a bowl for your young master? Luya didn't know that Shifengju was joking with her. She immediately became nervous and stammered as she apologized. Young master, please forgive me. This servant will go buy another bowl right now. This servant didn't know that young master also liked this kind of ordinary coarse food. Forget it, forget it. Shifengju saw that she was so scared that her face turned red. He quickly smiled and said, I was just joking. You don't have to go. This lass is so simple-minded. How could she take your joke? Sangwon couldn't help but laugh. Seeing that Luya was embarrassed, she said, You can go down and eat too. You don't need to wait here. Luya still didn't dare to leave. She timidly glanced at Shifengju. Shifengju sneered. Your young mistress asked you to go down. Why aren't you going? This prince is just joking with you. Don't take it seriously. Yes, yes. This servant will take her leave. Luya let out a long sigh of relief and patted her chest. Is it really that good? I want to try it too. Shifengju looked at the bowl of tofu pudding. He calmly scooped a spoonful and ate it. He nodded at Sangwon and said with a smile, It's really good. No wonder you keep thinking about it. Sangwon's face heated up, and the corner of her mouth twitched. Seeing that he didn't feel that there was anything wrong, she didn't want to point it out. Otherwise, it would seem that there was something wrong. Yes. Lee's tofu pudding is an old shop in town. Many people like to eat it, Sangwon said with a faint smile. So it's an old shop. No wonder. Let me try it again. Shifengju suddenly understood and took a spoonful from her bowl. Sangwon's smile froze. She didn't know if she should continue eating the remaining half of the bowl. It didn't seem good either way. What's wrong? Why aren't you eating? Shifengju asked deliberately, amused when he saw her blushing neck. His little wife was becoming more and more likable. I'll eat it now. Sangwon was a little flustered. She hurriedly smiled and brought over a clean, empty bowl. She gave half of it to Shifengju and said, Young master, if you like it, you can have half. It's just a novelty. Okay, thanks a lot. Shifengju smiled and finished it in a few mouthfuls. He looked at Sangwon with a smile. Sangwon pretended that she didn't see it. She lowered her head and continued to take small bites. Since there's nothing going on today, why don't we go out for a walk? I haven't visited your town yet. Shifengju laughed again. Sangwon said, although there weren't any good places to go in the town, it was better than staring at each other in the room of the inn. She nodded and said with a smile, the town isn't like Qingzhou. In fact, there isn't much fun or beautiful scenery. If you don't mind, I'll take you around. Shifengju smiled and said, there's no need for beautiful scenery. We'll just stroll around the streets. After dinner, Luya came in with 2 sets of brand new clothes. One was a set of ordinary men's robes made of sapphire blue fine cambric. It had a very simple cut and style. The other was a set of silver red embroidered muslin sleeves and a white silk dress. It was also very simple in style and material. Wearing these clothes on the streets would not attract attention. Sangwon said with a smile, you're so thoughtful. She ordered Luya to change her clothes. She also loosened her hair bun and combed it again. She only picked an inconspicuous jade hairpin and inserted it into her hair. After the two changed their clothes, Shifengju smiled and said, let's go. Take me to the places that you used to visit. I don't come to town often, and I don't have many places to visit. I'll just take you to walk around. Sangwon smiled. Okay. Anywhere is fine. Shifengju smiled casually. As long as I'm with you, anywhere is fine. The two of them walked on the streets. When Shifengju thought that this was a place that Sangwon used to visit, he felt that everything was alive and full of tempting spirit. He smiled and asked her from time to time what this place was, what that place was, what were its characteristics, whether she had been there before, and so on. He seemed to be overjoyed. Sangwon was affected by his enthusiasm and couldn't help but feel happy. She smiled and talked about the past with him. She talked about the cosmetics and silk flowers in the Red Flower Hall, the wonton stall on the East Street, the local temple, and the juggling show on the West Street. She talked endlessly. Sangwon couldn't help but look at the big iron wok fried with sugar chestnuts. Shifengju smiled and went forward to buy a packet. He held it in his hand and said, "Do you like it? When we go back, I'll ask the servant to peel it for you. It's delicious to eat it while it's hot." Sangwon couldn't help but say. Shifengju was startled and said with a smile, "Is that so? I haven't tried it before." As he spoke, he took out a chestnut and peeled it. He carefully blew the dust on it, and still felt that it wasn't clean. He frowned and wanted to throw it away and peel another one. Sangwon said with a smile, "That's how fried chestnuts are. Don't worry, you won't get sick after eating it." As she spoke, she took one and peeled it to eat. "Is that so? Haha." Shifengju saw this and subconsciously glanced around. He put the chestnut in his hand into his mouth. It was indeed very fragrant and delicious when it entered his mouth. The hot aroma rushed straight into his mouth. The pink, sticky, and sweet taste was not bad. Speaking of which, as a young master, he had never eaten while walking on the streets. He always felt uncomfortable. He had never touched street snacks like roasted chestnuts before. Seeing that Sangwon didn't feel strange, he swallowed the words he wanted to say. He thought to himself, "Forget it, as long as she's happy. In any case, it's rare for me to come out. It's quite fragrant. I'm afraid that this thing is too heaty. You'll be fine after eating a few. Don't eat too much." Shifengju smiled and peeled another chestnut to feed her. Someone saw it. Sangwon was slightly embarrassed. She quickly glanced around the street and saw that no one was paying attention. She hurriedly opened her mouth and bit Shifengju's finger. It was so painful that he grimaced. "How is it? Does it hurt?" Sangwon couldn't care less about the chestnut in her mouth and spat it on the ground. She hurriedly held his hand and saw that there were 2 small teeth marks on the tip of his index finger. She immediately blushed and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose." Shifengju's finger was held in her hand. He felt that their skin was particularly warm and delicate. His heart had long since become numb and itchy. He didn't feel any pain at all. He just smiled and looked at her. "It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt at all. The two of you are really loving. Haha, this old one is really envious. Sir, buy a hairpin or a flower for your wife to wear. I have all the new styles here. They're all from Hangzhou and Suzhou. Your wife is so beautiful. She'll definitely look good wearing them." A middle-aged woman wearing a purplish-red dress and carrying a bamboo basket suddenly came over and said with a smile, "We don't want them. You can ask elsewhere." Sangwon's face blushed. She hurriedly pulled Shifengju's arm and wanted to leave. Shifengju didn't want to leave. He was happy with Rijong. He smiled and asked the woman, "How do you know that we're husband and wife? How did you know?" The woman was a shrewd person. She knew that her words had made the young master happy. She thought to herself, "This young lady is obviously dressed like a married woman. If you're not husband and wife, how can you be so unrestrained in this market? How can you ask such an idiotic question?" She chuckled and said, "Sir, you and your wife look like husband and wife. If you're not husband and wife, then what are you? The two of you are truly a match made in heaven. With such a loving relationship, you will definitely be able to grow old together." The smile on Shifengju's face couldn't help but deepen. He smiled so much that his eyes were shining. He stared deeply at Sangwon. Sangwon happened to look at him. She unconsciously blushed and hurriedly avoided his gaze. The smile on Shifengju's face became even bigger. "Sir, your wife is so beautiful. Buy a hairpin to wear." The woman thought that this young couple was really interesting. They blushed when talking. It seemed that they were newlyweds. It was good to be newlyweds. Newlyweds loved their wives the most. As long as they could afford it, they were willing to buy anything. Shifengju glanced at the basket. It was all made of silver wire. The workmanship wasn't very exquisite. They were all very common things. Even the first and second-class servants in the Shi family wouldn't wear them. But at this moment, he was so happy that he felt that it wouldn't be right if he didn't take care of the woman's business. He picked a butterfly hairpin inlaid with broken agate and turquoise and asked with a smile, "This one. How much is it?" "Sir, you have good taste. This hairpin is the best and most exquisite in my basket. The design is also good. It's not expensive. It's only 3 taels of silver, the woman said with a smile. Shi Fengju smiled and took out some money from his pocket. Although he had money on him, he only had banknotes. He had all kinds of banknotes with different amounts, but he didn't have any broken silver. He picked out a banknote worth 10 taels and handed it to the woman with a smile. Take it. Keep the change. Just based on her words, he felt that the money was well spent. Oh. Thank you, sir. I wish that sir and madam will live together to a ripe old age, and be in love forever. The woman was so happy that her whole body itched. Her face was wrinkled into a chrysanthemum as she smiled. Shi Fengju also smiled. He looked at Sangwon and then looked at the silver hairpin in his hand. He was a bit embarrassed and didn't know what to do with this silver hairpin. Of course, the hairpin that his wife wore in her hair wouldn't be this cheap. The woman found it funny. She thought that this sir had a good appearance, but unexpectedly he was a bit silly. She was afraid that his wife would have a hard time in the future. She smiled and reminded him. Ah yes, sir, madam is waiting for you to put it on her. Why are you still in a daze? Sangwon's face was flushed. She didn't know what to say and simply didn't say anything. Shi Fengju saw that she didn't have any objections. He thought to himself that he might as well put it on her for good luck. He smiled and carefully inserted it into her hair. Ah, this hairpin suits madam so well. Madam looks so beautiful wearing it. The woman smiled and clapped her hands. She said a lot of nice things. She was afraid that Shi Fengju would go back on his words, so she smiled and left. This woman is a bit interesting. Shi Fengju rubbed his hands and smiled. She's just a hawker. Flowers can't come out of her mouth. As the head of the Shi family, you actually listened to her. Sangwon couldn't help but laugh and glanced at him. Shi Fengju stared deeply at her and half-jokingly said, her words are pleasant to hear. This sir feels good when he hears them. Sangwon's face turned red. She didn't say anything and continued to lead him forward. Chapter 110. Ryo Kuwabara was so excited that he didn't sleep well the entire night. He tossed and turned, thinking about what kind of concubine he should buy. Her figure had to be good, her face had to be good, and her skin had to be as tender as a peeled egg. As for her age, 16 or 17 was the most suitable. Of course, if she was especially beautiful and likable, 18 or 19 was also fine. The most important thing was that the price had to be cheaper, much cheaper. Thinking about Ryo Kuwabara, he couldn't help but hesitate. The middlemen in the brothel were all shrewd people. If they didn't have a good price, how could they let go of a good girl? If he wanted a young and good girl, he would need at least 20 or 30 taels. 20 or 30 taels, not 2 or 3 taels. Ryo Kuwabara felt his heart ache when he thought about it. He couldn't help but sigh. In his heart, he thought that it was better to forget about it. In any case, it was to give birth to a son. What was the difference between 30 taels and 10 taels? Just pick one with a big butt and easy to give birth to. Thinking about it again, that would be a huge loss. He was already so old. If he didn't enjoy himself now, it would be too late in the future. Spending 20 or 30 taels was worth it. It was worth it. Ryo Kuwabara made up his mind. He decided that no matter how much he spent, the upper limit of this, no matter how much, was 50 taels. No matter what, he had to pick a satisfactory one. The next morning, Ryo Kuwabara woke up and ate breakfast. He changed into a brand new brown robe with flower patterns. He had banknotes in his pocket, and his hair was combed smoothly without a single hair out of place. He happily went out the door. Lee leaned against the door frame to look at him. She hatefully glared at his back and spat. She cursed in a low voice. She turned around and vented her anger on Sang-ro. She called her over and pointed her finger at her forehead, scolding her. Sang-ro, as usual, drooped her head and silently pretended to be dead. However, in her heart, she was secretly gloating. She was even more anxious than her father to have a new concubine marry into the family. No matter what, it would not be good for her to attract the attention of the enemy. However, it would definitely be bad for Lee. Ryo Kuwabara hired an ox cart to go to town. He was only willing to pay 6 copper coins, but the owner of the ox thought he was stingy, so he deliberately slowed down and let the ox slowly graze on the grass as they walked. It was equivalent to letting the ox graze while they were at it. No matter how much Rio Kuwabara urged him, he only pretended to be deaf and dumb. When Rio Kuwabara arrived at town, it was already noon. When he jumped off the cart, he was very dissatisfied. In the end, he only gave the other party 5 copper coins. The owner of the ox cart was so angry that he couldn't speak, but he also knew the other party's character. He knew that there was no way he could get the 1 copper coin back, so he could only angrily give up. "Hey, little Sue, give me a ride back in the afternoon. You're going back anyway, right? I'll give you 3 coins at most." Rio Kuwabara thought he was being very generous. The owner of the ox cart looked at him with disdain and snorted coldly. "I can't afford to earn your money. I still have to rush back to do farm work. You should hire another cart." After saying that, he swung his whip and left without looking back. In his heart, he thought that the Sang brothers were right to cut ties with him. It would be better not to have this kind of elder in their family. As he said that, he looked at himself with disdain. What was the point of coveting this little bit of money? This little bit of money wasn't enough to make him angry. Really? You have money, but you don't know how to earn it. You deserve to be poor. Rio Kuwabara snorted disdainfully. With his hands behind his back, he strolled into the bustling market unhurriedly. He planned to eat lunch first before going to see the person. Letting the new concubine eat an extra meal at the broker house could be considered a profit for him. Rio Kuwabara picked a noodle stall by the side of the road and sat down. He ordered a large bowl of steaming hot noodle soup, and specially asked the waiter to add some chopped green onions and wontons. Just as he picked up his chopsticks and was about to scoop up the noodles, he heard the rapid sound of a gong on the street. A man in his early 30s wearing a dark brown uniform was hitting the gong and shouting at the top of his lungs. "Good news! Good news! Great news! Our Willowtown Sai Village's second young master, Sang Yufei, has won the Autumn Festival's first prize, Jiyuan. Good news! Good news! Great news!" The official was beating the gong as he shouted. Other than Sang Yufei, there was another person in Willowtown, He Shinji, who had also won the High Scholar examination. He took turns to announce the names of these 2 people, attracting the attention of countless people behind him. They all wanted to know who Sang Yufei and He Shinji were. Between the conversations there were sighs, praises, and envy. For a moment, there was a boiling cauldron of voices. It was very lively. Rio Kuwabara's chopsticks fell onto the table with a clatter. He was completely stunned. By the time he came back to his senses, the official who was beating the gong had already left. Rio Kuwabara stood up abruptly and grabbed the stall owner, asking, Who did that official say won the Jiyuan?" The little boss was startled by him and stammered, Sang Yufei. "Which village?" "I think. Sai Village. Are you sure? You didn't hear wrong?" Rio Kuwabara's face was pale. He tightened his grip on the stall owner's collar, almost choking him. "No. What are you doing? You're suffocating me." The stall owner came back to his senses and angrily pushed Rio Kuwabara away. He said angrily, "What's wrong with you? What does it have to do with you that he won the Jiyuan? Why are you so agitated?" "What do you mean it has nothing to do with me? That's my nephew. My own nephew." Rio Kuwabara stomped his feet and ran out. "Hey, you haven't paid yet." The stall owner grabbed him. 5 copper coins, thanks." Rio Kuwabara said angrily, "My nephew won the Jiyuan, and you still want to take my money? I have to go home quickly." "Even if he won the Jiyuan, you still have to pay." The stall owner was angrily questioned by him for no reason. Ri Zhang was not in a good mood, and did not want to back down. He rolled his eyes and said disdainfully, "What's more? How do I know that you're not a big liar who cheats for food and drinks?" He thought to himself, "How can your nephew win the Jiyuan if you're like this? Then my son will be the Jiyuan. Don't look down on me with your dog eyes. Just you wait, I'll remember you." Rio Kuwabara was so angry that he trembled. He was so anxious that he did not have time to argue with the stall owner. He took out 5 copper coins and threw it to him. He anxiously chased after the stall owner. After finding out that it was indeed Sang Yufei who won the Jiyuan, Rio Kuwabara was so happy that the corners of his mouth almost reached his ears. Great, this is great. Now I'm Jiyuan's uncle. I'm the only elder in the Jiyuan family. Suddenly, Ryo Kuwabara's excited mood fell from the peak to the bottom of the valley. His excited smile froze on his lips as he remembered what happened yesterday. How can it be like this? How can it be like this? Ryo Kuwabara stomped his feet in regret. He could not help but complain that the person who announced the good news did not report it a day earlier. So what? I'm his uncle. No one can change this fact. Now that he's rich, there's no way he won't admit it. Everyone's spittle will drown him. Ryo Kuwabara sneered. Moreover, the village still does not know about this news, right? He guessed that the kid did not know either. He had to hurry back and change yesterday's matter. Wouldn't everything be fine then? Right. That's what I'll do. Ryo Kuwabara could not help but feel proud of his cleverness. There was no time to lose. This time he did not care about being stingy. He spent 3 silver coins to hire a carriage. He also did not care about buying a concubine. He anxiously rushed back to the village. When the good news spread throughout the streets, Sangwon and Shifengju were having lunch in a private room of a restaurant. Hearing the gongs and loud shouts from the person who announced the good news, Sangwon's eyes could not help but light up and the corners of her lips curled up into a smile. The news has finally come back. That's great, that's really great. Sangwon looked down from the window and smiled happily. The yamen will only come tomorrow to announce the good news. Let's go early tomorrow. Shifengju said with a smile. The person who announced the good news set up a ceremonial procession. He would arrive around noon. This was also a good time to eat lunch at the host's house. Okay. Tomorrow's all up to you. I don't understand these things. Sangwon looked at him with her bright eyes and smiled. Don't worry. The people I brought are all suitable and capable people. I will give them proper instructions. Shifengju saw that she was relying on him, so he was even more happy. Sangwon suddenly made a sound of surprise. She pointed to the crowd and said, Look, isn't that second uncle? Why is he here? Shifengju looked in the direction she was pointing. He saw a tall and thin man in his early 50s squeezing through the crowd. He seemed to be asking someone next to him something. It was Ryo Kuwabara. Shifengju was also secretly puzzled. Seeing Sangwon frown, he smiled and said, I think it's just a coincidence. I'm afraid the whole village will know about him this time. Do you want us to go back now? Shifengju didn't know that Sang Yufei and Sangwon were discussing about scheming against Ryo Kuwabara. After all, it wasn't something to be proud of, so it wasn't convenient to tell him. No need, Sangwon said. Regardless of whether second brother did it yesterday or not, she wouldn't be able to help at this time. If she went back now, she wouldn't be able to help. If second uncle forced her, she would be asking for trouble. It was better to wait until tomorrow. Okay, let's do it tomorrow. Shifengju felt a little strange, but didn't think too much about it. Ryo Kuwabara anxiously rushed back to Sai village. He got off the carriage and hurried home. Lee was also very concerned about what her new sister looked like. After Ryo Kuwabara left, she didn't know how many times she looked at the door. When she saw him rushing home, she couldn't help but get angry again. She angrily scolded him in a low voice. When she looked again, something was wrong. There was only her husband. There were no concubines. Lee was so happy that flowers were about to bloom in her heart. She shouted, Master! Master! She ran towards Ryo Kuwabara and laughed excitedly. Master, you didn't buy a concubine. What time is it? Why do you still want to buy a concubine? Ryo Kuwabara said angrily. Ah yes. Lee was overjoyed. Let's wait until we find out more and find a good one. There's no rush, no rush. Let's not talk about this anymore. Come home with me. I have something important to tell you. Ryo Kuwabara became more and more annoyed as he walked. He glanced at Sang Hong's house and couldn't help showing a greedy look. Oh. Lee was still laughing happily. As long as Ryo Kuwabara didn't take a concubine, it was a big deal for her. Therefore, no matter what he said, Lee didn't say anything. Chapter 111. Wait a minute. They were husband and wife after all. She knew Ryo Kuwabara the best. She finally realized what was going on. Master, what happened? Emph. Look at what you've done. Rio Kuwabara snorted coldly. After entering the house, he pulled her into the room and closed the door. He said coldly with a sullen face, "Isn't it just 2 kilograms of flour? If Yufei wants to lend it to you, can't you just lend it to him? He's my brother's son, my nephew. What's wrong with lending him 1 or 2 kilograms of flour? How can you be so stingy? It's fine if you don't close the door, but why are you scolding him? That's my nephew, and he's also your nephew. How can you be an elder like this? You ignorant and stupid woman. Your conscience has been eaten by a dog." "Master." Lee raised her hand and touched his forehead. "Are you possessed? Why are you saying such strange things? Why should we lend our things to them? Even if it's a loan, can he return it? Besides, isn't it all in the past? We have nothing to do with them now. What nephew? They're so beautiful. They're not worthy." Lee pursed her lips and thought, "Don't just talk about me. Yesterday, you scolded them more happily than I did." "Shut up." Lee's words just happened to poke Rio Kuwabara's sore spot. He shouted angrily, "What do you mean by nothing to do with them? Who said nothing to do with them? Even if the bones are broken, the tendons are still connected. How can we not be related by blood? Let me tell you, listen carefully. I, Rio Kuwabara, will be his uncle for life. If he doesn't want to recognize me, there's no way." How come you've changed after going to town? It seems that I have to invite Fairy Huang over." Lee stared at Rio Kuwabara with her eyes wide open. All right. Calm down. I'm fine. Rio Kuwabara finally calmed down after his outburst. He exhaled and said with lingering fear, "Fortunately, I went to the town today. Otherwise, I would have suffered a great loss." As he spoke, he told Li everything that had happened. "What?" Li cried out involuntarily. "He's been poisoned by Jiyuan. Keep your voice down." Rio Kuwabara glared at her and said in a low voice, "No one in the village knows about this yet. Listen to me carefully. Go to their house right now and change yesterday's incident back to how it was. Saying Yufei, that brat, can win Jiyuan? Master, did you make a mistake?" Li felt very uncomfortable. Why was he able to win the Jiyuan? Did he have such good luck? "How could I be wrong?" Rio Kuwabara snorted. Rio Kuwabara of Sai village in Yonglu town. I heard it clearly and asked a few passers-by. How could I be wrong? Then maybe the official who reported the good news made a mistake. Lee began to feel sour. "Can't you say something else?" Rio Kuwabara poked her forehead. "Our Sang family is going to be rich. Are you that unhappy? Master, we just broke off relations yesterday. What does it have to do with us whether they become rich or not?" Lee pursed her lips. "You still have the nerve to say that?" Rio Kuwabara said angrily. "Yesterday's incident was caused by you. I don't care what method you use, you better turn things around for me." "What, you don't want to be Duke Jiyuan's aunt?" Lee's eyes lit up and a smile appeared on her face. She said happily, That's right. How could I have forgotten about that? We are their elders. Haha, master, we are going to be rich." Hee, that child Yufei has been smart since he was young. Like I said, he will definitely have a bright future. Sang Pingliang loved to hear such words. He couldn't help but stroke his short beard and said with a smile, "I'll go right now." Lee was about to leave. "Stop." Rio Kuwabara glanced at her and frowned. "Change your clothes and comb your hair before you go. Also, don't tell them that Yufei has been poisoned. Don't say a word, understand?" I know, Lee said as she opened the wardrobe. "If they find out and refuse to let the matter pass, wouldn't that be terrible? I still have that much experience." At least you're not completely stupid," Rio Kuwabara said as he lay on the bed, hugging his head and crossing his legs. He was leisurely dreaming of getting rich. Li Sher changed into a new set of clothes and combed her hair before heading to Sang Hong's house. She knocked on the courtyard door and called out with a smile, "Xiaofei, Ahong, are you home?" Soon, the door opened and Fong came out. She placed one hand on the door to block Li. She said politely and distantly, "Oh, isn't this second Aunt Sang? What's the matter?" "What second Aunt Sang?" Li said with a smile. You don't even know how to call me second aunt. I'm here to find Faye and Ahiro. Are they home? Tell me what's the matter. Fong stopped her from entering. What right do you have to stop me from entering? Lee said angrily. Fong said with a smile. Second aunt sang, this is my house, not your house. I can't afford to entertain a big shot like you, so I won't let you in. Besides, Ahiro and second brother aren't home. Not home? Lee paused for a moment before remembering. Sang Hong should be teaching the children in the village school. However, Sang Hong was not an important person and could be ignored. She asked, where did Faye go? He went to work in the fields. Fong said lightly. I owe you guys. How can you let him work? Lee was in so much pain that she stumbled. Fong laughed out loud. Second aunt sang, my family's matters don't seem to have anything to do with you, right? You. Lee glared at Fong, speechless. Fong was not afraid of her in the past, and she was even less afraid of her now. She knew that she could not gain any advantage in front of Fong, so she snorted and said proudly, since they're not home, then I'll go back first. When they come back, tell them to come to my house. That's not good. Fong said with a smile. Didn't second aunt Sang and second uncle Sang say yesterday that they would never step into your house? We're not that thick-skinned to do this kind of self-defeating thing. As she spoke, her cynical gaze swept over her body. Two women who were slightly older than Lee happened to pass by. When they saw Lee's angry face, they thought that she was here to cause trouble again. They couldn't help but step forward and pull on Lee, saying, second sister-in-law of the Sang family, why do you have to do this? Didn't you already sever ties with them? You should be magnanimous and forgive them. That's right, just pretend they don't exist. Why do you have to do this? The two of them spoke one after another, and after greeting Fong, they forcefully pushed Lee away. Lee was so angry that she glared at them, anxiously arguing with them. Yesterday's matter doesn't count. It doesn't count at all. We didn't sever ties. Oh, how could she say something like that? The two of them looked at each other, and couldn't help but secretly despise her. They thought that Lee must have realized that she couldn't take advantage of them after severing ties with them, so she's going back on her words. This person, how could she be so shameless? With the Sang brothers treating their uncle and aunt like this, it must have been a miracle that they hadn't taken all of their belongings. Second sister-in-law of the Sang family, what you're saying is wrong. Yesterday's matter was decided by Rijong. How could it not count when it was written in black and white? Besides, all of us were watching. That's right. The two of them were full of disdain, and before Lee could say anything, they left. How dare you be so arrogant with me? Lee muttered angrily. When this old lady becomes rich, I won't even bother to look at you if you beg me. How was it? Did you settle the matter? Ryo Kuwabara asked as soon as Lee returned home. No. Lee was not in a good mood. No. Ryo Kuwabara raised his voice. If you didn't, then why did you come back? They're not at home, Lee said. The two brothers aren't at home. That bitch, Madame Fong, even ridiculed me. She's so disrespectful to her elders. I'll ask Ahiro to divorce her sooner or later. Not at home. Where did Faye go? Ryo Kuwabara automatically ignored Lee's complaints. Right now he only cared about Sang Yufei. As for whether or not Lee was ridiculed, it didn't matter. It wasn't like she would lose a piece of meat. He said he went to work in the field. Who knows where he went? Lee said with a sullen face. Work. Ryo Kuwabara made a no sound and didn't ask again. He said, where's Ahiro? He's in school, right? Yes. I'll go find him. Ryo Kuwabara brushed his clothes and said, I just thought of an idea. I want to find Ahiro and take him to Rijong to adopt Faye as our son. What do you think? Adopt him as our son? Lee's eyes lit up. She clapped her hands in joy. Good, good. It can't be better. She got a Ji-Yuan as her son for no reason. Moreover, the master had no reason to take in a concubine. It was simply a great thing. She didn't know that since Ryo Kuwabara was lustful, even the emperor couldn't stop him from taking in a concubine. Ryo Kuwabara said proudly. Our second branch doesn't have any descendants. The first branch has 2 sons. It's only right that one of them be adopted to take care of us in old age. Ryo Kuwabara was sure that Sang Hong was honest and wouldn't dare to refute his words. As long as he nodded and asked Ri Zhang to make a written agreement, Sang Yufei would have to agree even if he didn't want to. You catch 2 chickens and wait at the entrance of the school. I'll give you 5 taels of silver. When I take a Hyro out of the school, we'll go to Ri Zhang's house. Okay. When Li heard that she had to catch 2 chickens and give him 5 taels of silver, she couldn't help but feel her heart ache. Listen to me. At the critical moment, Ryo Kuwabara was more charming. He stared at Li and said seriously, catch the biggest rooster and the hen that is laying eggs. I'm warning you, if you're stingy and ruin my business, I won't let you off. When Li heard him say that, she felt even more heartache. When she heard the last sentence, she was shocked and hurriedly nodded. Hurry up, I'll go first. Ryo Kuwabara said and hurriedly went out. Sang Hong was teaching a class in the school. Seeing Ryo Kuwabara waving at him with a smile on his face, Sang Hong's heart thumped. After hesitating for a moment, he gave the students 2 sentences to memorize and then went out. Ryo Kuwabara didn't misjudge him. Although yesterday's matter really made his heart cold, he still couldn't pretend that he didn't see Ryo Kuwabara. Chapter 112. Second Uncle Sang. Haha. No need to be so polite with second uncle. Without waiting for Sang Hong to finish his words, Ryo Kuwabara affectionately pulled his arm. Come, follow second uncle. Second Uncle Sang. Sang Hong couldn't help but frown. He pulled his arm back and said seriously, Second Uncle Sang, if you have something to say, just say it. One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Sang Hong was honest, but that didn't mean he was stupid. Aya, this isn't the place to talk. Ryo Kuwabara didn't care about his somewhat distant address and attitude. He still smiled affectionately. Come with second uncle and you'll know. There's still an hour before school ends. Second uncle, please wait a little longer. Sang Hong said politely. Why are you being so serious about these good-for-nothing students? Go. Second Uncle Sang. Sang Hong took 2 steps back and said seriously, I've received their tuition. How can I be so careless? Second Uncle Sang, please wait a little longer. You're really? Okay, then you go, I'll wait for you here. Ryo Kuwabara was helpless and could only sigh. This is strange. Sang Hong was secretly shocked. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that he knew something? Sang Hong anxiously returned to the academy, unable to calm himself down. After an hour, he came out of school. He originally thought that Ryo Kuwabara had already left, but who knew that he would stand up from the rock and pull him with a smile. Come with second uncle. Second Uncle Sang, please, I can walk by myself. Sang Hong sighed and could only follow. Yo, a Hyro is here. Bumping into Li at the entrance of the school, Sang Hong was even more shocked. He didn't understand what this couple was up to. Unknowingly, after walking for a while, he raised his head and saw Ri Zhang's courtyard in front of him. Sang Hong stopped in shock. Second Uncle Sang, Second Aunt Sang, this is? Haha, come, you'll know when you go in. Quickly go in. Ryo Kuwabara and Li pushed and shoved Sang Hong inside. Who's this? Ri Zhang's wife heard the commotion and came out to take a look. Seeing the 3 people and Li holding 2 fat chickens, she couldn't help but be stunned. Yo, This couple was famous for being stingy in the village. They were actually willing to bring 2 chickens to their house. Moreover, they had never liked Sang Hong and his brother, so why were the 2 of them smiling at Sang Hong today? Haha, sister-in-law, Ri Zhang is at home, right? We have something to ask him to make a decision for us. Li hurriedly said with a smile. Oh, he's in the house. Please come in. Ri Zhang's wife looked at them inexplicably and hurriedly let them in. Why is it you again? What's the matter? Ri Zhang couldn't help but frown when he saw the couple. Haha. We have something important to ask Ri Zhang to make a decision for us. Li hurriedly smiled fawningly and raised the 2 fat chickens in her hands. Please accept these 2 chickens as a token of our appreciation. This hen is still laying eggs, haha. Ri Zhang's eyebrows raised high. Put this aside for now. If you have something to say, sit down and talk. We cough cough. Rio Kuwabara saw Lee talking too much and immediately coughed twice, coldly staring at her. Master, please say it, please say it. Lee embarrassedly shut her mouth. Rio Kuwabara respectfully cupped his hands and said, naturally, he didn't mention anything about yesterday's matter. First, he complimented Rijong with a few words, and then he just kept complaining. He said that he was over 50 years old and didn't have a son, and that his future was so bleak. When he talked about the sad part, he couldn't help but sigh. As Rijong listened, his face softened a little, and then he became more sullen. He thought to himself, so you also know this truth. Since you know it, why are you so stingy? Even your own nephew is so cold and heartless. In the future, this family property will be waiting to be taken into the coffin. After complaining, Rio Kuwabara finally changed the topic. He finally said the purpose of today's visit, and then he tried to squeeze out 2 drops of tears. He got up and bowed deeply to Rijong. Rijong, please make a decision for us. Lee also hurriedly followed suit. Rijong, please take pity on us. Sang Hong was shocked, and his face changed. He never expected that his second uncle and second aunt actually had this idea. It wasn't easy to fight for yesterday's situation. And Sang Hong knew clearly that he would never agree to this. But if he didn't agree, what should he do? After all, what they said was reasonable. Rijong was also stunned, and he asked in disbelief. What did you say? Say it again. Rio Kuwabara then said it again. Rijong's face was full of anger, and his lips moved, but he didn't say anything in the end. He really wanted to scold. Ridiculous. Nonsense. This couple's age added together was more than 100 years old. How could they do such unreliable things? Yesterday, they insisted on breaking off their relationship with the other party. And today, they wanted to adopt the other party as their son. If their heads weren't kicked by a donkey, what was it? They were still playing Rijong like a monkey. Rijong held back his scolding words and sighed. Brother Sang, you have to think clearly. If Fei becomes your son, then in the future, when you are 100 years old, the house and land will all be his. Have you really thought it through? Thought it through. Rio Kuwabara and Lee quickly nodded. Rijong, we have thought it through very clearly. After Fei is adopted, he will be our biological son, and everything will be his in the future. As long as he sends us off, it will be fine. All right. Rijong nodded. Since you have really thought it through, then this matter can't be changed anymore. In the future, it can't be changed, and when the time comes, don't come looking for me again. When Rio Kuwabara and Lee heard this, they were even more delighted, and agreed with a smile. Although Rijong felt that they were a little strange today, it didn't affect him, so he didn't think too much about it. He turned to Sang Hong and smiled. Ahiro, did you hear that? I think. Rijong. Sang Hong mustered up his courage and said, please forgive me for not agreeing to this matter. What? Rijong was surprised. His first reaction was, this family has all eaten the wrong medicine today. Rio Kuwabara was stunned, and he glared at Sang Hong, about to explode, but Rijong stopped him with a look. Ahiro, Rijong said. You have to think it through. If Fei is adopted, he will be the only son of the second branch of the Sang family. In the future, he will inherit everything from the second branch, and the two of you will have less of a burden. That's right. Rio Kuwabara said unhappily. Doesn't Fei like to study? We have the money, so let him study. What are you worrying about? When Sang Hong heard this, he couldn't help but get angry. That was his biological brother. If he didn't worry about him, who would? Them. Where were they when he needed their help and worry in the past? Now they know how to talk big. Rijong. Sang Hong ignored Rio Kuwabara and cupped his hands towards Rijong. I'm sure you haven't forgotten what happened yesterday, right? If second Uncle Sang wanted to adopt Fei in the past, I wouldn't have been able to refuse, but it's different now. Firstly, we are no longer a family, so they can't expect us to agree. Secondly, I don't feel at ease letting my brother go. What do you mean? Rio Kuwabara panicked when he heard this. How are we no longer a family? Yesterday's matter doesn't count. Isn't this simple? Just tear up the agreement. That's right. Lee also chimed in. Ahiro, we're doing this for your own good. If Faye comes with us, you can save on your expenses. Your son and daughter are still waiting for the betrothal gifts and dowry. Besides, can you just stand by and watch your second uncle and aunt die without a son? You're so unfilial. Second uncle sang. Second aunt sang. Sang Hong trembled with anger. He didn't know how to argue with people, so he could only call them that, reminding them that they were no longer a family. How could Ryo Kuwabara and Lee agree? They immediately aggressively questioned Sang Hong, forcing him to agree immediately. Sang Hong couldn't take it anymore and said, Ri Zhang was the witness for yesterday's matter, but he went back on his words after one day. Not to mention us, won't Ri Zhang be criticized as well? Also, second uncle Sang and second aunt Sang's attitude suddenly changed. Can I ask why? How can I be at ease handing Faye over to you like this? He's my biological brother. You've grown wings, haven't you? You even dare to talk back. Ryo Kuwabara trembled with anger. You still have the nerve to mention yesterday. You must have done it on purpose yesterday. Yes, it was on purpose. Lee's brain turned, and she hit the nail on the head. Enough, enough. Ri Zhang frowned and interrupted, saying unhappily, If you want to quarrel, then go back and quarrel. Ri Zhang sighed in his heart, thinking that he had almost done something bad out of kindness. Originally, he thought that this couple had really changed, but it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. Sang Hong's words had hit the nail on the head, and he also wanted to know the reason. Also, with this couple's quarrel, just as Sang Hong said, he would also have a reputation of going back on his words. This adoption is a big matter, Ri Zhang made up his mind, and said to Ryo Kuwabara, Brother Sang, don't blame me for speaking bluntly. Yesterday, it was clearly you who came to find me and insisted on severing ties with the first branch, but today you want to adopt Faye as your son. The change in attitude is too big. If you don't tell me the reason, then forgive me for not being able to help you. It's all Sang Hong's fault for being so meddlesome. Ryo Kuwabara unconsciously glared hatefully at Sang Hong, and then smiled at Ri Zhang, insisting, It's really nothing. Didn't we just say the reason? The two of us don't have a son. The two of you have been childless for decades. It's not like you just found out yesterday. Isn't this reason a bit forced? Ri Zhang interrupted. How could Ryo Kuwabara and his wife admit it? They insisted that this was the case, saying that they didn't notice this before, and suddenly thought of it last night, so they came today. Is it really like this? Ri Zhang looked at them suspiciously. But why did I hear Sister Sang say that they did it on purpose yesterday? On purpose? On what purpose? What does this mean? He just... Shut up. Ryo Kuwabara shouted to stop Lee, and glared fiercely at her. How could she say such things? It would be bad if she was exposed. Chapter 113. This woman is just talking nonsense. Ri Zhang, don't take it to heart. Ryo Kuwabara smiled and said, You can rest assured. I can assure you that after Faye is adopted, we will definitely treat him as our own son. If you don't believe me, we can make a written agreement. I'm old and I don't have a son. When I think about the future, I feel cold in my heart. I really don't have anything to think about. Ri Zhang, you're also an old man. You should be able to understand this. Ahiro, what do you think? Ri Zhang couldn't help but sigh. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have done it in the first place. No. Things had already reached this point. Sang Hong knew that his attitude must be firm. If he showed the slightest trace of weakness, they would definitely not let go. You unfilial son. Do you have the right to speak? Even if you don't agree, you have to agree. Ryo Kuwabara glared at Sang Hong and shouted angrily. He was really angry in his heart. Ri Zhang was obviously moved by him. Why did this damn thing suddenly become a tough bone? Sang Hong didn't back down and said, If second Uncle Sang mentioned this before yesterday, I wouldn't have anything to say. But now you're accusing me of being unfilial. It doesn't seem to be reasonable, right? You dash. Ahiro is right. Ri Zhang stared at Ryo Kuwabara, who was about to scold. Your two families have already broken off the relationship. You two are no longer his elders. How can you accuse him of being unfilial? His biological brother doesn't want to be adopted by you. It's not up to you to say anything. Okay, let's just forget about this matter. The way I see it, the two of you are still in good health. Why don't you go to the neighboring county and adopt a child from one of the clans? Wouldn't that be the same? Rijong's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but glance at Ryo Kuwabara and Lee. He suddenly realized something. Oh, Sang Yufei has grown up. Once he's adopted, he'll be a ready-made labor force. He'll save a lot of rice. This couple was most likely planning to do so. Rijong looked down on them even more. He waved his hand impatiently and said, all right. Brother Sang, you're already so old. You can't go back on your words like this. How could a decision made yesterday be completely changed today? Moreover, this was no small matter. All right, it's getting late. Let's all go back. That's right, take away the chicken you brought with you. This couple. Rijong thought to himself, I didn't say anything. Even if I didn't say anything, you two would have taken it anyway. Sorry to disturb you. Sang Hong stood up and cupped his hands to bid farewell. Ryo Kuwabara grabbed him and said, we haven't asked Faye about this matter yet. How do you know Faye isn't willing? Call Faye over. I'll ask him personally. Right. Faye is a good person. He's not as heartless as you. Lee said. Why are these two talking so incoherently today? They're different from usual? Rijong was confused. There's a problem. There's definitely a problem. All right, then call Faye over to ask him too. Rijong felt disgusted when he saw the couple pestering him like sticky candy. He just wanted to send them away quickly, so he said, I'll say the ugly words first. If Faye isn't willing, then let's just forget about this matter. Don't say anything else and quickly go back home. If he's willing, Rijong, you have to help us, Lee said. Rijong glanced at Sang Hong. Seeing that he didn't have anything to say, he nodded and said, if he's willing, then I'll help you. He called his son over and asked him to invite second brother Sang over. Not long after, Sang Yufei knocked on the door and came in. Rijong, you're looking for me? Faye. You're here. Faye, come. Second uncle has great news to tell you. Without waiting for Rijong to speak, Ryo Kuwabara and his wife walked over to Sang Yufei with smiles on their faces. It was as if they had seen gold ingots. They pulled him over and talked to him passionately. Sang Yufei struggled to break free. He smiled bitterly and said, what's going on? Second uncle Sang, second aunt Sang, can you tell me slowly? Listen to us carefully. This is great news. Ryo Kuwabara told him about adopting him as his son. He said that everything in the second branch would be his in the future. He also said that he wouldn't interfere with his studies. He could study for as long as he wanted. He also said that he would treat him as his own son. If he didn't believe him, he could write a written agreement with Rijong. When Sang Yufei heard this, he knew that they must have gotten wind of this news. He sneered in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. Ryo Kuwabara smiled until his face was red. He pulled Sang Yufei over to Rijong and said impatiently, Rijong, look. Faye doesn't have any objections. Let's write a written agreement right now? Yes. Let's not delay any longer, and let other people ruin it. Lee also hurriedly agreed and glared at Sang Hong. Second uncle Sang. Sang Yufei rudely pushed his hand away. I don't want to. I've lived with my big brother and sister-in-law for so many years. I don't want to be adopted. You want to learn from that heartless and unfilial son? Ryo Kuwabara's face turned cold. Unfilial? I don't know who second uncle Sang is to me. You can't say such things. Sang Yufei wasn't as easy to talk to as Sang Hong. He smirked and said mockingly, I'm your second uncle. You can't change this fact. But yesterday you changed this fact yourself. It's written in black and white. Second uncle Sang can't have forgotten it so quickly, right? If you forgot, please go back and take a look at it. Sang Yufei glanced at them coldly. He calmly pulled Sang Hong and said, Big brother, let's go home. You dash. I say, brother Sang. You should give up now, right? Rijong impatiently pushed him and said, It's getting late. Let's go back and make dinner. This matter, let's just forget about it. Don't mention it again. You can adopt a child from anywhere. Isn't it the same? Or you can ask your daughter to find a husband. Why do you have to break up a family? This is karma. It hasn't even been a day, and they're already slapping their own mouths. I really don't know what these two are arguing about. Ri-jong shook his head in confusion. He couldn't understand this kind of person's thinking. You did it on purpose. You did it on purpose. Ryo Kuwabara was angry and anxious. He didn't care about anything else. He pointed at Sang Hong and Sang Yufei and shouted, You two brothers must have worked together to set us up yesterday. Sang Yufei, you heartless brat. You didn't even recognize your own family after getting into Jiyuan. You're not a good person. What? Ri-jong and Sang Yufei exclaimed at the same time. Sang Hong was stunned. His eyes flashed with a trace of panic, but he quickly calmed down. What Jiyuan? You're talking about me. Don't tell me. I got into Jiyuan? Sang Yufei's eyes widened. He pointed at his own nose in disbelief and laughed. I say, second Uncle Sang, you can't joke like this. If I don't get in, you'll compensate me? What the hell is going on? Ri-jong was also confused. You didn't hear wrong. Fei really got into Jiyuan? Ri-jong asked excitedly. The whole town knows about it. How can it be wrong? Ryo Kuwabara sneered. He simply told them what he saw and heard in town today. He pointed at Sang Yufei and questioned. You dare say you don't know? Hee, if you didn't know, why did you do that yesterday? You were obviously afraid that we would benefit from your glory, so you deliberately set a trap for us to fall into. Second Uncle Sang. Sang Yufei said coldly. Yesterday, I only went to your house to borrow flour. It's fine if you didn't want to lend it to me. Do you need me to repeat what you said? It's fine if you scolded us brothers, but you didn't even let my father off. Today, you still have the nerve to accuse me of being unfilial. Later on, the ones who insisted on severing ties and looking for Ri-jong were you too. Sister-in-law tried to persuade you so many times, but did you listen to her? Good, so I got into it. Hee, no wonder you want me to be adopted. Second Uncle Sang, second Aunt Sang, you two have a good plan. My brother and sister-in-law worked so hard to provide for my food, clothes, and education. You two know how to take advantage of me. Ri-jong suppressed his ecstasy and couldn't help but sigh when he heard this. He said, Brother Sang, no matter what, you two have already severed ties. Fei, second Uncle Sang, if you don't want to be adopted, then you don't want to. Don't mention this again. When he didn't know, he didn't say anything. But now that he knew that Sang Yufei got into the Jiyuan, the county magistrate had to greet him. He was just a small Ri-jong, so of course he didn't dare to call him by his name. You all colluded with each other. You tricked us. Ryo Kuwabara flew into a rage out of humiliation, and even blamed Ri-jong. How can you speak like that? Ri-jong said angrily. Who was the one who begged me to take action yesterday? No, I'm not talking about you. They must have known about it long ago, that's why. Ryo Kuwabara felt guilty and pointed at Sang Hong and his brother. Sang Yufei sneered. Didn't you say that you only saw the officials in town today to announce the good news? The yamen didn't even know about it. How could I know about it first? Besides, if I knew about such a joyous occasion, would I come back in such a shabby state? Second Uncle Sang, you can't be lying to me about this matter, right? Did I really get into it? Sang Yufei's brows furrowed slightly as he spoke, his face full of worry. Ryo Kuwabara was sure that he already knew about it. Seeing him act like this, he was so angry that he almost couldn't breathe. The two of you are already so old. How can you do such a ridiculous thing? When others were in trouble, you stood by the shore and mocked them. Now that they have made a name for themselves, you come and take advantage of them. Is there such a good thing in this world? All right, I can't help you with this matter. Please leave. Ri-jong coldly chased them away. Ri-jong wasn't stupid. He had already heard some clues and suspected that the Sang brothers had planned yesterday's matter, but he wasn't stupid enough to say it aloud. Ryo Kuwabara was a person who didn't wake up early if there were no benefits. If there weren't any benefits, he wouldn't have insisted on adopting Sang Yufei. If he did so, it meant that the news he brought back was 99% true. In other words, Sang Yufei was now Jiyuan. In the future, he might have to rely on him for many things, so he was happy to do him a favor. Chapter 114. Thank you, Rijong. If there's nothing else, we brothers will be going back first. Sang Yufei was feeling very happy. He smiled and cupped his hands towards Rijong. I don't dare. Please go back quickly. Rijong hurriedly dodged to the side and returned the greeting. Oh right, if there's anything you need help with, just let me know. If we really win, we'll have to trouble Rijong. Sang Yufei also said politely. Hee, you're too polite. Ryo Kuwabara and Lee watched from the side. The two were so angry and embarrassed that they couldn't say anything. Rijong sent the two brothers out. When he turned around and saw that the two were still in a daze, he couldn't help but feel disgusted. He pushed and shoved them out of the house. Ryo Kuwabara and Lee were people who bullied the weak but feared the strong. They dared to bully the Sang brothers who didn't have parents, but they didn't dare to challenge Rijong. They could only leave Rijong's house in a sorry state, cursing and swearing all the way back. Master, what should we do? Lee anxiously wiped her tears. In the future, they'll bully us to death. Especially that Fong. Her mouth is sharper than a knife. Ryo Kuwabara's face was also very ugly. He said coldly, if you don't want to adopt, then so be it. What's so great about that? If you don't want to acknowledge me as your second uncle, you can dream on. Master, you have an idea? Lee stopped crying and asked hurriedly. You'll know tomorrow. Ryo Kuwabara let out a long breath. He didn't believe that Sang Yufei wouldn't acknowledge him as his biological uncle in front of a group of people tomorrow. Everyone in the village could testify that he was his uncle. If he dared to deny it, his reputation would be ruined. Now that there was a Gun in the village, Rijong's face was also glorious. He couldn't wait to spread the news. As a result, the whole Sai village was boiling. Sang Hong's family began to be lively from that night. Because everyone believed that Rijong would definitely not lie. If he said so, then it must be so. The Sang Hong brothers and Fong received group after group of people who came to congratulate them. There were respected elders, old women, young women, and men of the same generation. Those families whose children were studying under Sang Hong would not be left behind. One by one, they held their children's hands and brought gifts to the door in high spirits, hoping to be able to bask in Gun's happiness. The Sang Hong brothers and Fong were extremely busy. It wasn't until late at night that they finally sent off the last group of people who came to congratulate them. After closing the door, they saw all kinds of gifts piled up in the house. Eggs, noodles, live chickens and ducks, pork, bacon. The three of them simultaneously let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, their expressions were a little strange. Luckily, we all knew what was going on. Otherwise, this would really make us feel uneasy. Fong smiled. She pointed out everyone's thoughts with one sentence. Sang Hong and Sang Yufei couldn't help but nod in agreement. The three of them were all honest people. They wouldn't believe it unless they saw it with their own eyes. If Sang Yufei didn't know that he really did win, he wouldn't have believed everything just based on Ryo Kuwabara's words. If it was fake, then tonight's joke would be too big. The next morning, Sang Wan and Shifengju hurried from Willow Town to Sai Village. The good news had already arrived in town yesterday. According to tradition, they had to go to Sai Village to congratulate Gun today. Thus they hurried ahead. When they arrived at Sai Village, Sang Hong's house was already very lively. Before Sang Yufei, there had never been a high scholar in the village. This was the first time. Everyone felt honored and took the initiative to help out at the Sang residence. They also waited for the officials to come and see the excitement. Sang Wan and her husband's arrival naturally caused another commotion. Not to mention anything else, just the scene alone was enough to make everyone happy. For carriages pulled by fine horses came one after the other. Around them were more than 10 servants in bright clothes riding on tall horses. Just the scene alone was enough to attract everyone's attention. When the carriages stopped, Luya and Xingji, dressed in pea green embroidered satin robes, with jeweled silver hairpins and a pile of silk flowers, stepped out of the carriage. They caught up with the people in front of them, and helped Sang Wan and Shifengju out of the carriage. Everyone was full of admiration and admiration. Someone had already rushed in to tell the Sang brothers and Fong. Sangwon was dressed in a robe embroidered with flying clouds and gold thread. The sleeves and lapels of the robe were embroidered with 2 inches of gold and silver. At the collar was a white jade ruby head button the size of a chicken egg. In the middle of the button was a thumb-sized ruby. At the bottom was an orange-red dress embroidered with 100 butterflies and flowers. When she moved, it was as bright as the clouds. Her hair was adorned with a festive peony hairstyle. Needless to say, her hair was decorated with jade ornaments and pearls. There wasn't a single person in the crowd who didn't like to see this. They couldn't help but praise the Sang family. Shi Fengji was dressed in a well-fitting sapphire blue satin robe. A sparkling and translucent jade was tied around his waist. He wore a pair of black boots with powder foundation. His black hair was tied up high, and his figure was slender. His face was handsome, and his temperament was extraordinary. When he stood next to Sangwon, they looked like a perfect match. Words of praise rose and fell without end. The crowd was even more envious. They couldn't help but think that less than a year ago, Wan Yang was still a country bumpkin just like them. Now her style made them feel ashamed just by standing in front of her. They couldn't help but sigh with emotion. You're finally here. When the Sang Hong brothers and Fong heard the news, they hurriedly came out to welcome them with smiles. Shi Fengju and Sangwon went forward to greet each other. He smiled and said, "We received the news in Qingzhou yesterday and arrived in town yesterday afternoon. We stayed the night and only arrived today." As he said that, he congratulated Sang Yufei. Even the Shi family was here. This news couldn't be wrong. Those who were secretly hoping that the Sang family would rejoice in vain had already given up. They couldn't help but admit that the Sang family was really going to be rich this time. Thus, they turned their attention to fawning over them. The atmosphere became even better. Everyone crowded around the two of them and sat down to chat. They also asked if they knew when the official who would bring the good news would arrive. Shi Fengju had naturally asked around. He smiled and said, "They'll arrive around noon. There's no rush, there's still a while." Good. Everyone was relieved. Shi Fengju then ordered Chang Huan and the others to come forward and greet them. He then turned to Sang Hong and Fong and said with a smile, "When the official arrives, I'm afraid they'll have to stay for lunch. There should be about 20 to 30 of them. I'm afraid we'll have to prepare early. Wan Yang and I bought a lot of vegetables and fish in town. They're all in the carriage. Big brother and sister-in-law, please see how you can make the arrangements. These people will stay behind to help. Big brother and sister-in-law, please feel free to make the arrangements." That's right. They came all the way here to deliver the good news. No matter what, they'll have to stay for lunch. Everyone agreed. Sang Hong and Fong hurriedly thanked Shi Fengju. They then discussed with the others where to borrow the tables and chairs, how to prepare the tea, who would help with the kitchen, and so on. Everyone was eager to show their faces and help. Although it was a little complicated, it was quickly settled. Most of the people sitting in the central room were men, and it was extremely noisy. Sangwon didn't want to stay for too long. After greeting everyone, she got up and returned to her room to sit down. A few aunts and sisters-in-law from the same village accompanied her to talk. Just as Sangwon got up and was about to leave, she heard a hesitant and timid voice call out, "Younger cousin." She followed the voice and saw Sangro walking in from outside. Seeing everyone's eyes on her, Sangro felt a little embarrassed. She clenched her fists and braced herself to continue walking forward. Early in the morning, Ryo Kuwabara had asked Sangro to keep an eye on the Sang family and inform him if there was any movement. The return of Sangwon and Shi Fengju was a big deal. Ryo Kuwabara naturally knew about it. At that time, Ryo Kuwabara wanted to approach Shi Fengju and even hoped that Shi Fengju would speak a few words for him. The Sang brothers were heartless and didn't listen to their second uncle. However, the Shi family was rich and overbearing, so they wouldn't dare to offend them. As long as Shi Fengju helped him, they wouldn't dare to not give him face. The more Ryo Kuwabara thought about it, the more he felt that it was right. However, just as he was about to take a step forward, he retracted his foot. Forget it. A little impatience spoils great plans. Now wasn't the time for him to appear. He should wait until the officials came to announce the good news. Only then would he be able to catch them off guard. Now, in order to curry favor with the two brothers, who knew how the villagers would humiliate him. Even Rijong was like that, let alone the others. What if they purposely tried to find trouble and hurt him? Wouldn't that be terrible? However, even though Ryo Kuwabara resisted the urge to go, he couldn't remain calm anymore. If he wasn't present, who knew what those people would say to Shifengju and Sangwon? They would definitely exaggerate and distort the truth to smear his name. No, he had to invite them over for a meeting first. Anyway, he had never said that he would cut ties with Sangwon, right? Since Sangwon was back, she couldn't possibly not visit her elder, right? Thus, Sangro was forced to send her out. Cousin, Sangro forced a smile on her face. My father asked me to invite you and brother-in-law over for a chat. The crowd couldn't help but jeer and tease. Why didn't your father come himself? Why did he call you over? Kamahihi, you don't have to ask. How could he have the face to enter the main branch's door? That's right, look at what he did. But his skin is really thick. He actually asked someone to invite you over. If I were him, I would be so ashamed that I wouldn't come out to see anyone. AI, how can we compare with him? That's right, hehe. Everyone was talking at once. Sangro didn't dare to make a sound. Her face turned red and white as she looked pitifully at Sangwon. What happened? Sangwon was completely baffled. She didn't know what was going on. My great aunt, let's go inside and talk. This matter is really more lively than a play. The aunts were all talking at once. Today was a good day, and Fong was too lazy to give a little girl a hard time. She smiled at Sangro and said, Go back and tell your father that our great aunt is not free right now. Let's talk about it later. Quickly go back. Although there was a smile on Fong Shi's face, her eyes were cold. Before Sangro could respond, the aunties who were quick on their feet had already persuaded her to return to her room. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.